Friday night. And what else would you rather do than be here right now talking football? There's not much that I would rather do than sit here and talk. Little technical difficulties here, but I have a great show planned for you because I'm going to give you dark horse candidates to win NFL MVP from all 32 teams. And at the very end, I'm going to give you my top 5. And I'm not going to give you the standard ones. No quarterbacks on this list except for one. There's only one quarterback. And I have also Vegas Insiders up with NFL MVP odds from, let me see here. It's FanDuel, ESPN Bet, Caesars, DraftKings, and what is this other one here? I don't even know what this is. Oh, Bet Rivers. I've never even heard of this. But anyway, I have MVP candidates pulled up on 5 different sites. So if you want numbers, I can go ahead and provide numbers. But the ones I'm giving you today are extreme long shots. A lot of these names aren't even on the list to be MVP candidates. So kind of just letting you know. But there are some really good ones, and I want to hear your opinion here. Oh man, we think here, Perry. Perry's coming in. He goes, Dan, how are you? Man, I am fantastic. Football season is coming up fast and furious. I'm really excited. There's some NFL news too that I want to go over before I go over my. It's kind of funny. You already nailed one of the big topics. So, what's good, my guy? Says Funk, man. I am really, really good, man. I hope you are doing good. If you are a Detroit Lions fan, you should be excited. It's a big, big, big year for the Detroit Lions. Big year. What do you think of Sam Darnold being named the starter over J.J. McCarthy? It's funny because it turns out to be I work with a huge Vikings fan, and I talked to him about it, and both of us were a little surprised but elated because I'll be honest, coming out of college, and I don't do rankings. I'm not going to pretend that like I have Darnold at a 91.7 and McCarthy was an 89.5. I'm not going to be that guy, but I did think that Darnold was a much better quarterback coming out of USC than McCarthy. And I think this is smart because Darnold has crazy high upside. A lot of people don't realize this. Darnold, I've always felt like was just in the wrong spot, wrong place, wrong time. He's going to get a chance this year, I think, to really be the guy. And look, he's got Justin Jefferson. Great. 4 minutes into a show, already have a name freeze. 4 minutes. I'm not even at the 5-minute mark. Jordan Addison. So he's got weapons. That defense is going to be good. He's going to get a chance. And I think it's key because in the 2025 free agent market, he's got a chance to get a lot of money. He's not going to be there in 2025. He knows it. And hopefully the coach is not telling him, oh yeah, there's a good chance that we're gonna, keep you over McCarthy. No. He knows he's not. He knows that he's not going to be there for a long time. So play really good, and who knows what you can do in 2025. So. What do you guys think of the T-Law contract? Do it. Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing? I was actually going to lead off with that, so I'm glad you said that. I think it's fantastic, and I think it's smart to lock up your superstar quarterback because it's just a matter of time before that contract gets knocked down to being like the number 1 or number 2 year deal. It's the way I understand it, let me get the specifics here. I think it's a 5-year, $275. Yeah, it's 5-year, $275. And, it's just a matter of time before a quarterback breaks the 60. It's just a matter of time. So, matter of fact, Dak Prescott could do that. You never know. You never know. But I think it's a good thing. He was my preseason pick to be MVP. These are all dark horse MVPs. I only have one quarterback on my list. Funk says dark horse Goff has to be with Ben Johnson, arguably the best O-line in the league. Saint won't win it, but definitely could end up in the conversation now. Goff doesn't have his guy. I left Goff off the list because I only have one quarterback and I'll get into that when I start breaking it down. But no, I left Goff off. I have a different guy who's being really overlooked, but I think is a good candidate to be a real dark horse MVP. And I don't even think Lions fans see it, but I do. And I'll get into that. But no, Goff actually is really not that much of a dark horse MVP. Let me see here. You got to go down this list a little bit, but plus 3,500, which means 35-1 odds across the board, except for DraftKings, which has him as plus 4,000, which of course means you wager $100, you win 4,000, so 41 odds. I do think it's a little surprising that 3 out of 5 major sports books have Anthony Richardson above Goff. I think it's a little disrespectful. One of them has him below Goff, and one of them has him tied. So there's a lot of Anthony Richardson hype, which I'm a little surprised about. But let me see. Of all the quarterbacks here, I didn't count, but Goff 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. So Goff would be 16th. Richardson above Goff. If I'm a Lions fan, I'm like, that's very disrespectful. But hey. But no, I left him off the list. Joshua, I have somebody else. I think it's a good move. If Sam is not as good, they can switch to JJ and fans will let them develop. I think it's a great move because Sam Darnold has an opportunity to make a lot of money. I think he has more upside. And if some weird reason, and I don't see any possible way this happens unless you fire your general manager and then just say, hey, somebody want him for a 4th round pick. But if you decide that Darnold is your guy going forward, then you have to eat that draft capital. And I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're just going to let Sam Darnold play. Going old school here, but you go. You remember Carson Palmer? John Kitna was the starter year 1, and then Carson Palmer was the guy year 2. And Kitna knew it, everybody knew it, but he played really good ball. And I know he ended up. I want to say he went from Cincinnati and was starter in Seattle. Stayed in the NFL too. He's like 42, if I remember correctly. Went to coach high school football and then came back to be the backup quarterback in Dallas for like four or 5 games. You remember that? Yeah. Anyway, the thing is that I like when teams let their starting rookie quarterback sit. I don't think a rookie quarterback should be thrust into a starting role. And I keep in mind Troy Aikman's in the Hall of Fame. Peyton Manning's in the Hall of Fame. There's a lot of NFL quarterbacks that were just thrown right into the fire. But, I think it's smart. He's got Hawkins in too. Well, in week 6, we'll have him. I have somebody different. I'll get into that. But, I mean, there's to be honest, there's a lot of MVP candidates on the Lions. And part of that has to do with the fact that even though they added pieces on defense, I'm still not sold on the Lions defense. So don't get mad. Don't get mad. You got a couple rookies that are going to play. So, I think the Vikings need a running back to help Sam. I do too. I really do too. Perry asked a great question. Do you think we could have the defensive player win MVP? I think we could. He's got to be really good. So at the end of the video, I'm going to give you my top 5, and I do have a defensive player, maybe 2 on there, but it's only happened twice in NFL history. Okay, Lawrence Taylor, I want to say in 81 or 80, 88. I forgot. I should know this because I had the list up. I deleted the list, but I had a list up of all the NFL MVPs, and there's only 2 defensive players. It's Alan Page and Lawrence Taylor. And that's also important because I think it's got to be a guy that gets after the quarterback. Could there be a safety? I do have safety dark horse. I have a couple of them, but there's only one player in particular that plays off the ball that I'm really looking at that could be like an MVP candidate. So the only way this happens though, Perry, is if something extreme happens. Like the quarterback play is mediocre. By mediocre, I'm talking like Hall of Fame mediocre, like the best season's like 4,500 yards and 38 touchdowns, something like that. And then the defensive player has to do something just crazy. So. Did they pick up Lawrence's 5th year, then extend him because he's only played 3 years? Are the numbers out? I didn't look at all the details. I do know it's a 5-year extension. The way I understand it is that the way I understand it is that actually I had the numbers mixed up. I actually thought that they already picked up the 5th year, and this was going to be after the 5th year extension. So they got a running back. They do, but not. They got Aaron Jones. I'm not sure because I know that the last part of the season they really rode Aaron Jones hard, but they were adamant that they wanted to go to a younger running back in Josh Jacobs. How much wear and tear does Aaron Jones have? He's not my guy for the Vikings. I'll let you know that. And I don't expect him to have an MVP caliber season either. So I think contract should be 3 years max. I'm a real big fan of Trevor Lawrence. So I think it's smart. And this puts a lot of pressure on the Dolphins who have not signed Tua yet because, Tua can honestly say, hey, look, I played this well. So it really puts the Dolphins in a bad situation. Who do they have at running back? They got Aaron Jones. It was 86. Denver Gator, I already jumped to his first statement, but he goes, oh, great, I fell into a live stream full of football nerds. What else is better? When I said he has Hawkinson, I was referring to Sam Darnold and Aaron Jones is not a slouch. I just don't think he's going to be like an MVP candidate. And Darnold has weapons. This is the first time in his career that he's going into an offensive system with weapons where he's the starter. In San Francisco, he was 3rd string, and there was nothing he could ever do, even though – no, actually, I think – didn't he get elevated to 2nd string? Yeah, he did. But it didn't matter what he did. He was never going to replace Purdy. Here he's got weapons and offensive-minded coach, and hopefully they just tell him, hey, listen, look, you're our guy year one. Don't look over your shoulder. Don't worry about it. Just – do the best you can, and if you do well, you have a chance to make 9 figures next year, and that's serious. He seriously, remember Baker? Baker signed, what was it, that 3-year, 100 and some million? I forget what his contract was, but he could sign something like that very easily. Very easily. I'm drinking water now, but I got an energy drink. I probably don't need it. Denver, what's your takeaways from OTAs? Oh, good. That happens from time to time. JJ Watt was no. JJ Watt won defensive MVP. He was a candidate for NFL MVP. A lot of people thought he should have won MVP. Never got it. Dolphins need to tag Tua and see if he's. I agree, Perry. From what I understand, Tua's not going to agree. The way I understand it, Tua doesn't want to agree to it. The Dolphins want to sign into a deal. It's just terms. But yeah, Denver Gator. I'm going to read this. Denver Gator is a great comment. Perry, nobody wants to hear my optimism from the Broncos. I'm excited, but everyone else will just shit on them projecting 3 to 4 wins. I'm not ready to hear that noise. I actually agree with you, Denver Gator. I see a team that can hover around 500 because Vance Joseph, after that 70-point game, he dumbed down the defense and it started playing really well. Remember how miserable you were when they held the Chiefs to 9 points. I'm going to get into my dark horse MVP candidates here in a little bit, but the defense I think is going to be really good. I think Vance Joseph has some tools. Now I know they lost Simmons, but there's some talent on that defense, and Russell Wilson just wasn't the guy. People are like trying to make it sound like, oh, you got this rookie quarterback. Like Russell Wilson had a few decent games, but I mean, which quarterback do you really want going into 2024? A 64-year-old Russell Wilson, being facetious, of course, or do I want a rookie with a lot of upside? Now, I would be more excited about the rookie with lots of upside. I mean, I really think that Sean Payton, I'm not sure he's like, yeah, Bo Nix is my guy. There was a lot of talk. Denver really wanted to trade up, but I think that if Sean Payton's really being honest, if he's much more excited about going in with a raw Bo Nix than a burnt out Russell Wilson. I knew Russell Wilson and Sean Payton were not going to work, but do I think Bo Nix and Sean Payton could work? Yeah, I do. But yeah, I think they're going to hover around 500. I really do. I think the defense is going to be surprisingly good. I think Sean Payton doesn't have to lean on Nix to do the same thing Drew Brees did. He's also knows that, he doesn't have to transform. It's a lot harder to take a guy who's been in the NFL for 10 to 12 years and teach him something new than is for a guy just fresh out of college. I'm not saying Nix is going to be the guy, but if I really think Sean Payton is much more excited and looking much more forward to playing with Bo Nix than with Russell Wilson. So, but I think realistically, Denver is looking at 2025 when you get out of that cap hole and you can use some draft picks to help build around Bo Nix. By the way, let's just say they are a 3-4 win team. Let's just say they are a 3-4 win team. Let's just have some fun with it. Wouldn't it be great if you're a 3-4 win team, you find out Bo Nix isn't the guy, you don't like him, whatever. Shadir Sanders is right there. Deion Sanders has a good relationship with Sean Payton. They would make that work. So I really think Denver's going to hover around 500. But let's just say they are a 3-4 win team. Let's just say it. Shadir Sanders could be the next quarterback of the Denver Broncos, and Deion would endorse it. Sean Payton would have to eat some crow, but he's like, hey, look, Bo Nix was like option number 5. They'll trade him for a 5th round pick and they'll be fine. So if Reeder can be healthy, my dark horse for the Lions is Allen. I actually really like that. And I love Reeder. I love Reeder too. So if the Vikings head coach can turn Sam into above average, and by the way, I think he could be. He will be a good coach and he can develop JJ. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a win-win. Let's just say the Vikings hover around 500 and Darnold plays well. He's going to move on. He's going to get a boatload of money somewhere. Then, he may only get a 1-year deal, but it'll be a high one. Gardner Minshew signed for 2 years, $25 million at the Raiders, and right now he's the backup. Right, I've been following the Raiders pretty closely, and they really like Aiden O'Connell. They really think he's going to be the guy. Gardner Minshew is going to get $25 million over the next 2 years. Maybe he'll get one. I think the first year is like 15 or something. I don't know exactly, but if Darnold plays 500 ball, and I think he will, he could easily top that. And I'll be honest, I always thought Darnold could be a really good starting quarterback. He was in a really bad situation with the Jets. I'm drawing a blank where he went to after the Jets, but he went to Carolina. That was a disaster. Had no chance of starting San Francisco. I by the way, I think he could have done everything Brock Purdy did. I'm not as high on Brock Purdy as a lot of people. Nothing against Brock Purdy. Proved me wrong. I watched him in college. I'm like, that's not an NFL quarterback. All right, you are. I watched something from Colin Cowherd. A lot of people don't like Colin Cowherd. I enjoy him. I don't think he's an expert, but he said there's no real difference between Purdy and Garoppolo. Purdy's slightly more efficient. I don't think there's too much difference between the two, to be honest with you. I really don't. I think Darnold can do everything, Purdy could do. I really don't think Darnold's ever gotten a chance. This is his chance. It's a 1-year deal, though. But I would love it if they just were like, we're going to keep Darnold and like put ice on McCarthy or trade him for a bag of Doritos or something. Losing Simmons hurt, but you have young studs in the safety room. We're going to have a very young team in most positions. I think your defense is going to be surprisingly good. And I think your offense doesn't have to be the Saints offense. I really don't. I think your offense just has to be middle of the pack and do more than they did last year. But I really just think that Sean Payton was just in a bad situation with Russell Wilson. I knew it wasn't going to work out, but they're a year away. Let's be very clear. But if Nick shows steady improvement throughout the season, and I'm not talking statistical improvement, just understanding the NFL, understanding the defenses, getting Sean Payton's terminology down. And by the way, the offense that he did in college and Sean Payton's offense is going to be night and day different. Can he handle it? Can he learn the playbook? Will Sean Payton, this is going to be something I'm really looking forward to. I guarantee you for the first half of the season, he's not going to be allowed to call an audible. But towards the end of the season, is he going to be allowed to change plays at the line of scrimmage? If he can, that's going to show that he's picking up some things for offense. And that's what I'm looking forward to. Is Sean Payton trust him? Does he understand enough to make adjustments at the line of scrimmage? Does he understand defensive schemes well enough? Because he's going to see defenses in the NFL that don't even exist in college. Does he pick that up? And if he does, then, watch out NFL in 2025. Perry says he doesn't think Denver will be bottom 5 if he can challenge for the AFC West and Nixon play starter quarterback. I agree completely. And by the way, if Denver is terrible, Shadir Sanders is right there, and Sean Payton has a good relationship with Deion Sanders because Deion Sanders already has said that, hey, look, I'm going to be involved in this. Not, whoever picks number 1, that's not a lock. Like I've been adamant, and I'm going to say this again, but I think the Tennessee Titans are probably going to be the worst team in football. Just everything about them just looks off to me. If they have the number 1 pick and they want to draft Shadir Sanders, I think Deion's going to say, we're not going to sign. You better just trade this because we're going to do something different. But if Denver's in that position, I think Sean Payton will go to Deion, and I think he won't go to Shadir. I think he'll go to Deion and say, "Listen, we draft your kid. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to run this offense. I'm going to build them up this way." And Deion's going to go, "All right, let's do it." And then Deion is going to use his fame to help get endorsement deals for his son early on. You think Patrick Mahomes does a lot of commercials. Just wait till you see the Shadir Sanders commercials. They're going to be everywhere. My hot take, Sanders will disappoint a lot of people this year. Buff's lucky to go bowling. He has to overperform on a losing team to be a top pick. So they're going to the Big 12 this year. Me and you are going to talk a lot of college football, which I'm looking forward to, by the way. Look at those receivers. Travis Minor is going to be a top 10, probably a top 5 pick. He's going to play receiver a lot. Joe Horn Jr. is going to be a future number 1 draft pick. They got another receiver who's going to be a future. That skill position talent is crazy. That skill position talent is top 10, maybe top 5. And the offensive scheme, Deion knew the biggest mistake he made from going from Jackson State to Colorado is he didn't improve his offensive line and defensive line play enough. He thought he could get guys that were good enough to play at Jackson State to play on the whatever you want to call it, FCS level, FBS, Division I, whatever, and he didn't. He's going to improve the offensive line, which was terrible last year. He's going to get some studs on that offensive line. Shadir Sanders is going to. I really think he's going to have a good year. But we're going to talk college football, so it's going to be. I'm anxious to see how Colorado does in the Big 12. I'm anxious. I think pretty average and going to be above average at best, but he's not a superstar quarterback. I can't see Sanders not going to any team. If he's number 1 pick, it will be paid. Deion is adamant that he's going to have the same type of impact that Archie Manning had on Eli. Remember, Eli Manning was the number 1 pick of the Chargers. He's like, no, we're not going here. Went to the Giants instead. Out of him, Roethlisberger, and Rivers, I'm the only one who's going to tell you Rivers is the best in Roethlisberger than Eli, but yeah. But no, if he goes somewhere like Tennessee, which the organization's been rotating in coaches, this, by the way, if they have number 1 pick, they will fire their head coach. I don't see a situation where, like Zach Taylor was allowed to stay in Cincinnati after having a bad first year. Well, he got his quarterback in Joe Burrow and was able to proceed forward, but if Tennessee has number 1 pick in the draft, they'll get a new head coach. And I think Deion's just going to say, no. Your picks for offensive rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year. I got a few rookies on my list. I got a few rookies on my list. So I think Myles Garrett goes off. Could be. I'm gonna talk about that because I do mention him. Sanders needs to stay out of this. Kid may end up on the worst place. Deion's already said that he's going to be involved in the process. He doesn't want his son going to an organization that this is not going to win. I think he's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft, but we got a whole college football season to go over. But so I could be way wrong. If our offense is top, Goff has to be an MVP candidate. I agree with that. I have somebody different as my dark horse, but I agree completely. If Goff puts up the same numbers they did last year and you win 12 games because you're going to be on prime time a lot more, then he'll be in that conversation. I didn't realize it until just looking through here and seeing how low he is on this list. It's pretty disrespectful. By the way, Denver Gator, we're going to talk a lot of college football. Yeah, there's several quarterbacks. I've seen a lot of people that think that I think it's Carson Beck out of Georgia is going to be the best quarterback. Quinn Ewers, I've seen a lot of top 10 mocks where he goes. By the way, you got to be pretty good to put Manning on the bench. So, yeah. The kid out of Arizona, you're right. He's got some talent. What's his name out of Oregon? He's going to break Bo Nix's record. He's going to play something like 64 games. He was it Gabriel something? Was it Oklahoma, then UCF? Now he's at Oregon. He's going to put up monster numbers. They're doing something at Oregon. So, yeah. Eli Manning is just above average quarterback at best, defensive lines and defense. Oh, I agree completely. I'm not that high on Sanders. I'm telling you right now, he's going to put up some crazy numbers. He's my Heisman front runner. He's going to put up crazy numbers. Travis Minor, if you haven't seen him play yet, he's going to be a top 10, top 5 pick. He plays corner and receiver. He returns punts, may do kickoffs as well. There's a good chance Travis Minor goes top 5 in this draft. He's going to play corner in the NFL, but he's playing corner and receiver at Colorado. Joe Horn Jr. is going to be a first-round draft pick. His dad played in the NFL for a long time. Really, really started in Kansas City. I have no idea why, but when he was in Kansas City, he played good, but Marty Schottenheimer, for whatever reason, didn't want to play him. Goes to the Saints, balls out for like 5 or 6 years, went to like 4 or 5 Pro Bowls. His son looks just as good. His son, big, strong, fast. Like there's so much talent at receiver at Colorado that even if you're an average quarterback, you're going to put massive numbers. But Shadir Sanders is an above average quarterback. He's going to put up some crazy numbers this year. The defense may be bad, and if it is, then he's even going to put bigger numbers. So it's going to be fun. I'll get to my dark horse MVP candidates. I just put down a slideshow. I'm not going to bring it up, but I have some notes that I put down, and I'm going to start with the AFC East. And Buffalo Bills dark horse is James Cook. Let's be very clear. If Buffalo's a 14-15 win team, Josh Allen's going to win MVP. But James Cook last year, 237 carries, 1,122 yards, and he had 44 receptions for 445 yards and 4 touchdowns. If you notice, I omitted rushing touchdowns because he only had 2. And this is why he won't win MVP, is because Josh Allen had 15 rushing touchdowns last year. James Cook, who's about 50 pounds lighter, only had 2. But towards the end of the season, they really used him a lot more. He had 22 touches week 12 against Philly and 27 touches week 14 against Dallas. And then in the playoffs, he had 36 carries and 8 receptions. That's 22 touches in a game. So he got more involved at the end of the season. Remember, they switched offensive coordinators. They went to more of a running offense. James Cook was a lot more involved. If the Bills are going to, win the AFC East, he has to have a good season. James Cook has to have a good season. I should have put the total down, but 1,569 total yards is really, 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 really high. They used him more towards the end of the season. There's a chance he has over 2,000 scrimmage yards. Out of the guys I have as a top 5 candidate to win NFL MVP that are dark horses, James Cook is not on that list. He could have an MVP caliber season, but because Josh Allen is going to get more of those rushing touchdowns, and the team that has Josh Allen he's going to get a lot more of the MVP consideration than James Cook. But James Cook needs to have a good season. So, by the way, Deion's already said that he is going to get involved. So Denver Gator says if Papa Sanders gets involved, it'll blow up in both their faces. Deion isn't above the NFL. Could spoil his son's selection of teams are turned off by him interfering. It didn't hurt Eli Manning. It didn't hurt Eli Manning. And the reason why, now it's a little different because Archie Manning already had Peyton Manning in the NFL. And he did nothing because, Peyton was either going 1 or 2. I don't know. You remember the story is that they brought in both Ryan Leaf and Peyton Manning. Either one could have gone number 1. And in the interview, Manning, at the end, he was walking out the door and he turns around and he goes, "Listen, I would really love to be the number 1 pick in the draft. But if you don't draft me, I'm going to come back and kick your ass for the next 15 years. Close the door." And they were like, "That's our guy. That's our guy." Apparently, Leaf didn't do as well in the interviews. And then if you remember, that was in 98. Well, the 2001 draft happened and Chargers had number 1 pick overall because Ryan Leaf didn't pan out. So they kind of, hey, look, we'll blame the dad. But the Chargers organization was notoriously terrible. Still is, to be perfectly honest. However, things look better now. But it may not. It really may not. I think that Deion having some connections in the NFL could actually help. But I don't think it's going to turn some teams off. Like I said, I really do believe that if Shadir Sanders is number 1 prospect, and Tennessee holds the number 1 pick, I think his dad will go public for Shadir and say, hey, we're not going to Tennessee. Nothing against Tennessee, but we're not going there. And by the way, if Tennessee has no one pick in the draft, it's not going to be it's going to be a hard sell because it's a small market. They got rid of Mike Vrabel, who's an excellent coach, for a guy who's never coached before, and everything looks mismatched in Tennessee. And I maybe I'll be completely wrong. Maybe Tennessee will be a good team this year, but yeah. Eli Manning was like I actually just ate one, so Banquet TV dinner. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Welcome, man. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. That's awesome. I love it. Denver Gator here, top quarterbacks who would be better than Sanders or go number 1 overall. The quarterbacks from the school I listed above, Dan named off 3. Yeah, there's a few quarterbacks. We have to play the season, but most commonly I've seen Carson Beck out of Georgia, who's going to get some Heisman votes. I don't think he'll be a serious Heisman candidate because I don't think he's going to put up great numbers because that defense, they traditionally rotate guys in. Quinn Ewers out of Texas, who has Arch Manning on the bench, I've seen a lot of mock drafts already. I'm already doing mock drafts. Like top 10. He's going to put up some monster numbers this year too. And then I think it's Dylan Gabriel, who's at Oregon, played at Oklahoma, then he transferred to UCF once the head coach left to go to USC. By the way, that's another guy. The quarterback at USC is going to be a guy that's going to put up some numbers this year as well. Denver Gator helped me out. The quarterback from Miami is now in Wisconsin. There's a good chance he's going to be really good. I fell in love with him, and then he had injury issues. So, yeah. This is such a great comment. Leaf had so much talent. Not like Johnny Man. Johnny Manziel wasn't built for the NFL. Ryan Leaf was. Just didn't have the right head on his shoulder. Johnny Manziel, even if he did everything right, I don't think would have been more than an above average quarterback. He didn't have the same time. Ryan Leaf had elite talent. Ryan Leaf was more talented than Peyton Manning. There was no question. He had more arm strength. He had more mobility. He was bigger, which Manning's a big dude. I mean, Ryan Leaf was tight end size. And it was funny. I didn't know this till recently, but they were talking about the Kenny Pickett hand size. Ryan Leaf goes, I had the largest hands ever. And by the NFL Combine, it was like 10 and a half. He pulled out his hand. It was massive. And I remember when he threw a football, it looked like he was throwing a Nerf ball because his hand was so big, and that's why he could throw the ball anywhere on the field. But no, he didn't have right hand. Night and day difference in Johnny Manziel. Night and day difference. He had so much more NFL caliber talent. Johnny Manziel was the most exciting college player I might have ever seen. None of that was going to transfer into the pro level. And there was a lot of talk that if Cleveland didn't draft him, Kansas City would have. And I was like, God, is he coming to Kansas City? Could it work? But yeah. I do. Perry asks, do you think Texas will have monsters? So week 2, they're already a 3.5-point favorite at Michigan. And I think they're going to beat Michigan. I think there's a chance they beat Michigan by double digits week 2. And then that's when the hype train will start going for a Texas to be a national container. Van Dyke. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Denver Gator. Yes. This kid's up at Wisconsin, and this kid's got first round talent, but I don't know. But the answer, Perry, yes. I think they beat Michigan week 2. It's week 2 of the college football season. I know it's second game for Michigan. I don't know if it's the first or second game for Texas, but Texas travels to Ann Arbor, and I'm telling you right now, like I think Texas wins that game, and I think there's a chance they win that big, and it's going to be fun. So. Yeah, Van Dyke was. I skipped the rest of your statement because I was trying to think of Van Dyke, but yeah, that guy could be a first round pick. The main reason I think Sanders falls because he's in a small market on a losing team. Okay, they went from the Pac-10 to the Big 12. The Big 12 is going to play some in Texas, going to play some games, specifically Dallas, major market. So it's going to increase. They're going to be on prime time a lot this year. So that's something you have to look forward to. But yeah. Denver, by the way, is not a small market. Denver is not a small market. It's funny because Denver's a much bigger market than Kansas City, even though Kansas City tries to pretend it's a big market. It's not. Kansas City's a very small market. Denver's bigger than Kansas City, but they're gonna play in some primetime games this year. But they are a losing team, and I don't think they will. I don't think they're as good. I think Utah's one of my sleep. Utah's going to win the Big 12 this year, and. But I think Colorado is going to be a winning team, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Denver Gators already agreed this fall that we're going to talk college football on a weekly basis, so it's going to be great. Manziel over Tebow for most exciting. Okay, excitement Manziel, better Tebow, no question. By the way, like if you're going to name like the best college quarterbacks of all time, Manziel would be on that top 2010. Tebow's top 5. But excitement Manziel, better Tebow. Yeah. I've never seen it. I've never seen the Draft Day movie. I've never seen it. I was told it's good. I know that like Mel Kiper and the ESPN staff came on, and I've never seen it. So I have no idea what you're talking about. Never seen it. I like Kevin Costner. I love Dennis Leary. By the way, for those, a lot of you may not remember this, but every once in a while, I still play the asshole song by Dennis Leary. Dennis Leary's amazing. Need more guys like Dennis Leary in the world. Passed away a couple years ago. Love Dennis Leary. I know he's in it. I know Costner's in it. I love Mel Kiper Jr. Never seen it. Keaton Talk Sports is in the house. By the way, speaking of college football, Keaton Talk Sports is dead serious. He said Ohio State would win 15 games in the NFL this year. Nobody will beat Ohio State, according to Keaton Talk Sports. They would run undefeated in college football this season. So, yeah. Some love for Keaton here. Tebow was a winner. He won a playoff. You know what? It was so hard, but both me and my dad liked Tim Tebow. And he was with the Broncos, but it was so hard not to like him because every game it would be the same thing. He would be like 4 for 24 for 12 yards and 2 interceptions, but they'd be down by 4 points. There's 3 minutes left in the game, and Tebow would score a touchdown and win. Every game was the same thing. It was like 6 straight weeks of this where he would play like garbage for 54 minutes, and he just it would be weird. They played a game against the Bears. The Bears, all they had to do was kneel. Instead, the running back runs out of bounds for some weird reason. And like as soon as he runs out of bounds, he goes like this. Tebow gets the ball back. There was like 14 yards of offense, and Tebow finds a way to score a touchdown. Or actually, I think they ended up getting to midfield and Prater hit like a 94-yard field goal or something. It was the Denver Broncos for like I think it was the 2012 season. I think it was the 2012 season. Like they had like a 6 or 7 game streak where they were the most fun team to watch. His first start was against Miami. He had like, it was something comical. It was like 68 yards of offense. But for whatever reason, and tell me if I'm wrong, Denver. I think the score was legitimately 16-3, And the backup quarterback was warming up, and then Tim Tebow leads the team downfield, scores a touchdown with like 1:43. They regained the onside kick, and then Tim Tebow morphs into like college Tebow and scores the winning touchdown with like 15 seconds left. And it's like, what? And everybody's like, okay, it won't happen again. And then the same thing happened like 5 straight. It was so much fun to watch. And it's like, I'm a Chiefs fan and I don't want them to win, but it's just so entertaining. It's so much fun. Yes, Dennis Leary, that asshole song is fantastic. That seriously, yes. He threw for over 300 yards that game. A lot of people don't realize that. Tim Tebow threw for over 300 yards. God, the wide receiver passed away too, who caught that touchdown pass. Number 88 replaced Calvin Johnson at Georgia Tech, and God died at a young age too. All right, let's continue my list here. Miami Dolphins dark horse is Devin Achane. Listen to these numbers. He played in only 11 games last year. He only had 4 starts, but listen to these stats. 103 carries, 808 yards. That's 7.8 yards a carry, 8 rushing touchdowns. 27 receptions, 197 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He only played in 11 games. He only started 4 of them, but he had 11 touchdowns and 997 total yards. Devin Achane was easily going to be rookie of the year. Then he got hurt because he's not a big dude. Jeff Wilson had 18 touchdowns, but he's 31. Miami Dolphins traded a 2025 third-round pick to draft a running back in the 4th round this year. Was it Jalen? I want to say it's Jalen Sanders. We're talking about Sanders so much. I'm drawing a blank. University of Tennessee running back. I think it's going to be a mistake, but he's a bigger guy because they realize Achane can't handle a full workload. I mean, he only had 130 touches and couldn't stay healthy. But God, if Achane stays healthy, this is a legitimate MVP player. And you got Tua, you had Tyreek Hill. Every time I watch the Dolphins, I'm always impressed at how good Jalen Waddle is. You got OBJ. This guy plays 17 games. This is the dude who's special. This is the dude who's special. Fun guy to watch. Won't win MVP because he's probably just not going to be able to hold up. He's like 185, 190 pounds. So I think Tebow should have went to the CFL. He might fix his throwing mechanism. He took the money on TV. I remember when he tried playing fullback for the Jets with Rex Ryan, and I was like, he's trying, but he's it's hard for me to say anything bad about Tim Tebow. It really is. He's one of those guys who may be the greatest college quarterback who ever lived, not an NFL quarterback. I don't know if he would have worked in the CFL, to be honest with you. I don't know. I like him on TV. I really do like him on TV. I just can't say say anything bad about Tebow. When we were about to bring in Manning, I freaked out. I was so excited to have Manning mentor Tebow for a few years, and yeah, Manning. It was really funny because the Kansas City Chiefs reached out to Manning, and Manning's like, "I'll fly over Kansas City, but I'm not doing it. I'll take a dump when I'm flying over Kansas City to go to Denver," and that's what he did. So, but yeah, it was kind of funny. Like the Chiefs begged him to come there. I was like, no. Yeah, I forgot about that. Urban Meyer, who coached him in college. So, Denver Gator, you're on board with Urban Meyer being the greatest coach in University of Florida history. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm going to get to the Lions. New York Jets, I have Breece Hall, who 1,585 total yards and 9 touchdowns. If the quarterback situation was just average in New York, he had 994 rushing yards. He would probably have 1,200. I see a lot of regulars here. I see a lot of guys I've talked to before, so you know how much of a man crush I have on Breece Hall. If by the way, I was fucking with you, Denver Gators. The Denver Gators is second behind because I love Steve Spurrier. Who doesn't love Steve Spurrier? You can't spell Chattanooga without UT. You remember that? Okay. We gotta stop talking Florida and Tennessee and everything. The media was Tebow downfall. Some love him, others hate him. You know, honestly, I heard that if there wasn't such a media circus, a team would have been happy to bring in Tebow as a third string quarterback. And I kind of believe that because I think he could have been used very similarly the way the Saints used Taysom Hill. But yeah, there was a media circus. But I mean, remember Denver traded up in the first round to get him. Denver was adamant that they could make him into an NFL quarterback. And then he had – it was so much fun to watch because here's seriously, every single game was the same thing. He would just look god-awful, like you want to bench him for 3.5 quarters, and then he would just morph. And then there would be all these weird things that would happen. That led to Denver victories, and it was so much fun to watch. It was like forget the first. By the way, watch Tim Tebow the first 3 quarters. You'll fall asleep. It was horrible. If you're a Broncos fan, you'd pull your hair out. That's not why I'm bald, by the way. It was terrible. It was just awful. But God, the last like 15 minutes of the game was the most exciting thing you ever see. He would do things. It was fantastic. It really was. And A-Rod didn't show up. McGoof trade up. No, I'll be honest with you. So I had Keaton Talk Sports in Keys come on, and Aaron Rodgers, I'm not batting an eye because he knows that offense forwards and backwards. But Lamar Jackson, I thought was a big deal because he's only in that new offense for a second season, and they want to tweak it. They want to make some changes, and he's not there. Remember, he held out for the first time because he wanted that big deal. Well, he got the big deal. He sacrificed $750,000 not showing up to OTAs, which I think Lamar needs to be there. Aaron Rodgers doesn't need to be there. All right, he knows that offense forwards and backwards. He doesn't need to be there at all. It's almost a good thing, to be honest with you, Rodgers isn't there because Tyrod Taylor might need to play this season. Tyrod Taylor, the Jets with Tyrod Taylor would have won 10 games last year, maybe 12. Tyrod Taylor can play. He needs reps. Aaron Rodgers doesn't. Aaron Rodgers doesn't need to be. I think Lamar Jackson not being in OTAs is a big deal. Jack Fox was a real head coach. Actually, I thought it was John Fox. I'm pretty sure it's John Fox. It doesn't matter. But yeah, McGoof. And actually, I have no idea where he's at right now. He is the coach of the Raiders. Got fired. I was expecting him to go back to New England. I actually have no idea what he's doing. I heard Belichick is going to do is going to be on Pat McAfee's show. And by the way, I'm going to get Netflix soon, but I haven't seen the roast of Tom Brady yet. I haven't seen it. So. All right, here's my super dark horse or MVP for the New England Patriots. And there's a lot of things that would have to happen, but this is one of my favorite players in the league, and it's Kyle Duggar. Last year, Kyle Duggar had 109 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 1.5 sacks. Now, he had 3 touchdowns in 2022, and he had 4 interceptions in 2021. This season, what they did is they used him more in the line of scrimmage, and he had a career high with 1.5 sacks. Kyle Duggar is going to play more of a linebacker, strong safety type of role, but here's a guy that got paid during the offseason, and I love Kyle Duggar's game, and I think that there's going to be more and more players like this, or hybrid safety linebackers. This is a guy that will probably not win MVP. I mean, there's never been a safety middle linebacker type. But Kyle Duggar doesn't really play a position. It's kind of funny. The New England Patriots defense with Belichick, it was kind of like a positionless defense. And Duggar really, really, really does a lot of different things. I love Duggar's game. He would have to do something crazy. Crazy. But he's you. By the way, I looked. You cannot find Kyle Duggar to win MVP numbers. The only way he's a defensive MVP is if the Patriots are a playoff type of team, and he does he puts up some crazy numbers. But his game, people around the NFL know how good he is. Fantasy football guys, PFF junkies, they don't get it. But this guy is a really, really good football player. Got a huge contract this offseason. I'm interested to see how they use him this year, because I think he's going to be more of a in-the-box type of safety. So, collection, yeah. I think I should have looked that up. I have no clue. Adam Gase. Oh God, yes. You know, it's funny because when Adam Gase got fired from the Dolphins, I thought they made a mistake. I really thought they made a mistake. Then he goes to the Jets, and it's like, really? And I actually think Gase is not a bad coach. And I think McDaniels with Belichick was a genius, and it worked. It's just neither one of them really. Gase will never get another head coaching job in the NFL, but I think he's a good offensive mind. Same thing with McDaniels. But yeah, I'm going to talk about this. I'm glad you brought it up, because that's I'm going east to west. So I mean, you gotta hang out for a little bit. Yeah, hang out, but yeah, I'm going east to west. So yeah. But I brought both those guys up for the Raiders. Yeah, spoiler alert. Yeah. And the reason why is the Raiders' offense is not going to be good. Gay should be, yeah, that's a true story. Yeah. NFC East, Dallas Cowboys. Micah Parsons is the favorite to win defensive MVP, and I don't know if you would consider Parsons a dark horse, but Micah Parsons has the ability to be an NFL MVP. I don't know if you really call him a dark horse, though. I'm gonna throw out a couple names for Dallas that may surprise you. Sam Williams, second or third round pick out of Ole Miss, pure pass rusher, speed dude. I have no idea how much Mike Zimmer is going to change this defense. I want to be very clear. I don't know what's going to happen. Sam Williams is a guy with a ton of ability. And here's another guy, Marshawn Nealon, the second round pick out of Western Michigan. I got a feeling Zimmer's going to fall in love with this kid. I think sooner than later, Nealon is going to get some playing time. Both of these guys may surprise you. On my top 5, I left Parsons off because he was my pick to win Defensive Player of the Year. So you asked offensive and defensive player of the year awards, Perry. Micah Parsons might be my favorite, but I am a little curious how he's going to use him and how Mike Zimmer is going to use him, because it was a really good job by Dan Quinn taking Micah Parsons and saying, let's use it at linebacker, let's use you at defensive end. We're going to kind of mix you around. We're going to dumb down the defense enough so that you're not trying to do everything. Kind of put kids' gloves on them in a way. Zimmer's not a kid's glove type of guy. So I'm really curious, because I really believe that Zimmer is going to make this defense better, but I don't know what he's going to do with Parsons. So it's going to be interesting. Oh my God. Oh my God. We have the great one, the talent, the B in the Back Talk Brothers. Gooch! Oh, man. We were talking about Denver Gators said that Colorado would beat Alabama if they played this year. So you missed that part. But I stuck up for you. Gooch, got some love here. Gooch here. Dan, do you think we'll see from one of the running backs having a good year? Dallas did invest. Yeah, Dallas did invest offensive line in the draft. Do you think we'll see I don't know. I don't know what you're trying to say there. From one of the running backs. So by the way, I know Perry uses his phone, but I'm not really sure what you're trying to. I don't know what you're trying to say. Running back, I do think so. By the way, the last several MVPs have all been quarterbacks. The last one to be a non-quarterback was Adrian Peterson. And that was he was coming back from that torn ACL and almost broke Eric Dickerson's record. I love that Eric Dickerson, they asked Eric Dickerson, they said, hey, do you want to break it? He's like, hell no, it's my record. Somebody will break 2105. But it's been 40 years. It's been 40 years. So, hey, Gooch, what do you think of Kansas City? I would love to hear it. Gooch, I would pick Vanderbilt to beat Bama before I pick. I think Colorado's going to be about an 8-9 win team this year. I really do. Perry, I'm cautiously optimistic. Yeah, I agree completely. I listen. We're going to talk, by the way, Gooch, we're going to talk a lot of college this year. And I think Saban's the greatest college coach of all time. I think Alabama had to fill his role, but I don't think they got the guy they really want. I think they want a bigger name. And I think that unless the national championships won in the next 2 to 3 years, I think they're going to get one. I just don't know who. But we're talking about. I'm going to stand by. I think Shadir Sanders is going to win the Heisman. I think he's going to be the number one pick in the draft. It's going to be a lot of fun. But we're going to talk a lot of college football this year. Denver Gator has agreed to be a. Do you think Dak and a young running back can help Dak be an MVP candidate, or one of the running backs on Dallas having a good year? The O-line's better. I mean, let's be honest. If Dallas is a 12 to 14 win team, Mike McCarthy wants to throw the ball, so Dak Prescott's always going to be. These are dark horses. These are guys that are going because CeeDee Lamb's doing that contract extension. Dak Prescott is playing for literally hundreds of millions of dollars in the future. I mean, yeah, I think, I'm be honest, I think Dak Prescott, to be honest with you. So let me do this here. Dak Prescott, I'm kind of surprised because out of the list, I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Dak Prescott's 10. And I would put him at top 5 because Mike McCarthy wants to throw the ball. They improved the offensive line, even though it is rookies. The 2 rookies they got are really, really, really good players. They are really good players. They are going to add a running back somewhere. I don't know where, but I mean, Ezekiel Elliott's not the answer. The 5'6" kid out of K-State whose dad is a Dallas scout. He's going to play some, but he's not the guy. You're not looking at oh God, what's his name? Out of Philly. Darren Sproles. You're not looking at a Darren Sproles type player. Darren Sproles went to K-State, also 5'6". He's not the same guy. The dark horses I'm going over today are guys that are really, really off the radar. There's only one quarterback on this list, but I'm going for guys that are off the radar completely, super dark horses. And I don't even know if Micah Parsons fits that list. But I would look at Sam Williams and Marshawn Nealon as guys that will get some consideration because Sam Williams is an athletic pass rusher who's only played part-time, but Dallas's defensive line coach is in Seattle. He's a new defensive coordinator. Zimmer's going to run a slightly different system. Sam Williams has ability. But I think Marshawn Nealon's a guy that might surprise people and be a really, really good player. Be a really, 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 really good player. Jerry says they're priority. Yeah, they are. But if Dak doesn't live up to standards, that's going to be a fun issue because Dak's going to be a free agent. How good is Dak? Somebody put up on CBS the last 50 games between Mahomes and Dak, and the stats are almost the same. So people are like, oh, yeah, who's really better? Well, let's slow down there. I mean, let's not put Dak in the Mahomes category, but I do think that Dak's a really good player. Let's be clear, though. There's no lock that he's going to be the Dallas Cowboys quarterback of the future. I can see a situation where Dallas wins 11, 12 games, loses in the first round of playoffs, and they just decide to clean house. When I say clean house, Zimmer will take over as head coach, and Zimmer is going to talk with Jerry and be like, hey, look, I can win with somebody else. Or we already talked about Sam Darnold. Are you going to tell me that Sam Darnold couldn't come into Dallas for a quarter of the price and do about 90% of what Dak does? I don't know. I really don't. It's going to be fun, though. Dak was yeah. So here's the deal, Perry. Dak was at his best when he was not the focus of the offense, but he was a complementary piece, and they ran the ball, and he used his running abilities. So who's playing running back for Dallas that can help Dak hit? Well, they re-signed Ezekiel Elliott, and they're working on building a time machine so he can go back about 5 years. And on a serious note, Ezekiel Elliott, they're really high on the K-State kid. I'm drawing a blank on his name, but they're going to sign somebody. I'm looking at maybe Kareem Hunt, Dalvin Cook. I could actually see them trading for somebody maybe mid-season. But the name is Ezekiel Elliott. He's not the same guy. So I think Dallas needs to move on from Dak. Dak not worth the money going forward. Dallas needs a young quarterback from the draft. I think there's a strong chance that they may do that too, Perry. I really believe there's a strong chance that Dallas after this season just says, hey, he's not a top 5 quarterback. We have to pay him like a top 5 quarterback. Let's just move on. There's a guy like Sam Darnold who'd come in for about a third, a fourth of the price. Gardner Minshew, who the Raiders are paying significantly more than Aiden O'Connell. And there's a good chance that you could bring in somebody like that. They have Trey Lance on that roster who's got ability. Coming out of college, Trey Lance was a better version of Dak Prescott. He really was. If you're talking coming straight out of college, because I watched a lot of Dak Prescott at Mississippi State. He was a fun player to watch. I just remember thinking he's got everything you need from an NFL quarterback, just not accuracy. Trey Lance, I'm thinking the same thing. Maybe you can build Trey Lance. There's a lot of things that Dallas can do. This is why football is such a fun thing. There's no absolutes. There's no real answers. You need a quarterback. There's been a few exceptions in NFL history. The 2002 Bucks, the 2000 Ravens. Raiders fans hate it, but Plunkett was. I know Plunkett won a Heisman. He was number 1 pick in the draft. Plunkett wasn't a star. He won a couple Super Bowls. I think you said it was either you or Funk, but your Funk said it. But Eli Manning, he won a couple Super Bowls. You don't need a superstar to win a quarterback, but out of the Super Bowl winners, 90% of them had Hall of Fame quarterbacks. You got to have everything else right. I agree completely. Perry says Mahomes could put team. Yeah, I agree completely. Dallas should bring in a veteran running back for free. I think there's a few veteran free agent running backs. I mentioned this before. Yeah, Kareem Hunt, Dalvin Cook. One other one I'm drawing a blank on, but there's also a possibility of a trade mid-season. You could see that. So Lance of the bus as Shanahan moved on. Well, according to Shanahan, they were just blown away by how well Purdy played. But Lance is a guy who's got talent, and Dak Prescott had talent. The only issue with Dak Prescott coming to Mississippi State is I thought he had all the tools to be a first-round pick. It's just the accuracy wasn't there. So they chose him in the 4th round. I thought that was a good pick. Trey Lance, I didn't think was a top 5 pick, but coming straight out of college, Lance is a better prospect than Dak. But I mean, I get what you're saying, but are you going to tell me that Trey Lance couldn't step into Dallas's offense and get them to the playoffs? Hell, Bradshaw won 4 Super Bowls. It's funny because no quarterback in NFL history are people more one way or another than Bradshaw. Some people think he's one of the greatest to ever play, and some people think he's below average. It's funny. It's funny. I'll get back on track here. I found a YouTube channel just recently. I had a top 10 list, and they had top 10 defensive tackles. And I was like, this is a great list. This is one of the best lists I've ever seen. They did his list of the top 10 running backs. And I was like, this is maybe the worst list I've ever seen. But I've been debating. I did my top 10 quarterback list. I did it live. I didn't make a video. And Bradshaw didn't make my list. But I think he's still a Hall of Fame quarterback. So. Jim P had a good team. Oh, yeah. I forgot. He had actually the Super Bowl win was not with Madden. The Super Bowl 15 win was Flores was the head coach, not Madden. Al Davis built the team from hell, and it was an upset win in Super Bowl 15 against the Eagles. The Eagles were heavy favorites, but no, that was not Madden's. For the 70s, God, I really kind of want to talk 70s football now. By the way, I'm going to bring this up here. In 83, I think it was 83. I can look it up, but 83, Mark Mosley, a kicker, won MVP, and I'm throwing that completely out the window. That doesn't count. By the way, the guy who should have won MVP was Wes Chandler, who had over 1,000 receiving yards and 9 touchdowns. That was the 9-game season. So, and I'm going to not talk about Wes Chandler because I could go 80s football and 70s football for the next 2 hours, but I'm going to get back to my MVP list. Philadelphia Eagles, and if you've been watching my show for a while, you know who it is. It's Nolan Smith. Now, Hassan Reddick 2 years ago had 16 sacks. Now he had 11. In Fangio's defense, I think Nolan Smith may be moved around some different spots. He did that at Georgia, too. He didn't play just specifically on the edge. He played a little bit inside, mostly on the edge. And I think that Fangio's defense, they could use him around. But bottom line, like the Eagles, they weren't sweating losing Hassan Reddick. I mean, they got Nolan Smith, who's going to be a double-digit sack guy. It's an all Georgia front. You have Jordan Davis. You have another name freeze. 2 Georgia defensive tackles, and you have Nolan Smith, and you also have Georgia inside linebacker and Nakobe Dean. So it's like an all Georgia front 7. But that defense could be really, really good. Now Fangio was adamant drafting an edge rusher in the 3rd round out of, I think it's like Houston Christian or something like that. But Carter, yes, thank you, Jalen Carter. I can't believe I forgot his name. But do you think Vic Fangio can defense? Absolutely. I think Fangio is going to turn that defense around. It's just the offense I'm a little worried about because they're in a. You got an offensive coordinator who's a pass happy offensive coordinator. Drawing a blank on his name. Former Dallas quarterback, offensive coordinator, was with Chargers last year, played at Boise State, set like all sorts of records at Boise State too. And I can't think of the guy's name. But anyway. Yeah, I think Nolan Smith could be, Kellen Moore. Thank you, Perry. Yeah, Kellen Moore. But yeah, absolutely. But the guy who's going to get the most credit is going to be the guy getting sacks. Nolan Smith has the ability to have 15 to 20 sacks. That's crazy high ability. But Nolan Smith's that talented. He's going to have defensive tackles you've got to account for. Nolan Smith is going to have a huge year. But it's got to be something crazy for him to win MVP. But Nolan Smith in Fangio's defense could be special. Speaking of special, New York Giants, Kayvon Thibodeau. Nobody knows this, but he had 11.5 sacks last year. Now, they're switching defensive coordinators to going from Wink Martindale's really complex system to Shane Bowen. Shane Bowen was at Tennessee under Mike Vrabel, and he coached outside linebackers with Mike Vrabel. Of course, Mike Vrabel was played outside linebacker himself. So there's a chance that the outside linebackers of Brian Burns and Thibodeau are really good. Now, Brian Burns signed that massive contract. Thibodeau's the more talented guy. He had 11.5 sacks last year. And the problem is, I think the Giants' offense is going to be bad. I've been adamant about this. I don't have a lot of faith or in confidence in the New York Giants offense. So if the Giants offense is good enough to get 9 to 10 wins, Thibodeau will be a strong consideration to win the defensive MVP because he's going to get a ton of sacks. You got Dexter Lawrence on the inside. You have Brian Burns, who got a boatload of money on the other side. So either Burns or Thibodeau, if the Giants are a 9-10 win team, just a 9-10 team, even if the Giants are just a 9 or 10 win team, Burns or Thibodeau is going to get a lot of attention. Thibodeau is the more talented one. So I don't know if the system's going to be better or worse, but Bolin's an outside linebackers coach, so I would really, if you want a dark horse, because I don't think the Giants are going to be that good of a team. But if they are going to be a good team, it's because Burns and Thibodeau are just game wreckers. And out of the two, Thibodeau, I think, is better, even though Burns is the one who got the massive contract. Washington Commanders, dark horse. It's really hard to say. I'm not going to go Jalen Daniels because I don't think he's going to have an MVP season. But if somebody on the Washington Commanders was going to be an MVP, really two guys I'm looking at are Brian Robinson and possibly Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler was completely misused the last couple of years with the Chargers, signed a nice free agent deal with the Commanders. Austin Eckler is a running back, but he really is best positioned slot receiver. Are they going to be creative enough? Keep in mind, you have a really, really good offensive coordinator whose name escapes me. I'd like 5 name freezes. All right. Kingsbury, I'm sorry. So Kingsbury, really creative offensive. If he takes Eckler and he says, let's stop using you between the tackles, that's stupid. Let's get you in the open field. You're one of the best slot receivers in football. Let's use you as a slot receiver. There's a chance he could easily go over 1,000 receiving. Brian Robinson, I think, is the more likely candidate because I really think that Washington needs to play more smash mouth football. They have a hole at left tackle. You have a rookie quarterback. You know what? Let's just ride the big, powerful guy, not a speed demon, but the tackle guy in Brian Robinson. Do I think either one of these guys are going to win? No, I don't. And I think that Washington's going to be a team. I think Washington is going to be a team that's going to hover around 500. I think they're going to be a little better than most people think. The defense is going to be better, but I don't think there's going to be any offensive fireworks out of this team. But I do think that Jaden Daniels is going to play halfway decent. I personally think that the only way that this team could really, really, really contend is if Brian Robinson just has a monster year. Not a speed guy, but he's a power back. So could he be a guy that gets 15 touchdowns? Maybe. Oh, man, I got Ravens 7-6 more. Salute. If we had Coach Andy Reid, Lamar would have had 2 Super Bowls. I'm the only person that's a Chiefs fan will tell you that the Chiefs didn't win the AFC Championship game. The Ravens lost it. Why they went away from the running game. I hate blaming a player, but Zay Flowers lost that game. If he doesn't have that taunting penalty, you're on the 7, you score a touchdown, and it's game over. What do the Ravens do right after the taunting penalty? They give him a chance. He dives into the end zone, extends his arm, L'Jarius Sneed punches it out. Then he goes on the sideline, slams his hand down, cuts his hand, and they have to put OBJ in there, who, by the way, played really good. But why did you stop running the ball? Why do you stop running the ball? And it's funny because the announcers are trying calling it the Mahomes factor. I don't think that's it. Maybe it is, but they really panicked. And you're right. But here's the deal. I like the way that they use Lamar. And they use him as a runner. I don't know if that would work with Andy Reid. And I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, you turned Michael Vick around. Yeah, and Michael Vick, after getting out of jail, he begged, and Andy Reid's like, we'll give you a second chance. You're going to be a backup. You're going to sit behind Donovan McNabb. I'm going to teach you my offense. And it was because when he was in Atlanta with Jim Morrow Jr., they talked, and Jim Morrow's like, what could I have done? He's like, you couldn't have done anything. Because Michael Vick never looked at game film. He never learned defenses. He never did any of that stuff. And he had the ability just to be exciting, and that was good enough. His mindset changed in jail, and he was willing to listen. The fact that Lamar Jackson is giving up $750,000 to skip OTAs leads me to believe that he's not going to listen to Andy Reid, because they have a new offensive coordinator who's trying to expand the offense, but he doesn't have his quarterback there. That's a big problem. I love this. It goes. You rant as much as you want. I don't think it's a problem with Harbaugh, but why they abandoned the running game needs is you know. But I think Harbaugh, you know, seriously, I'll be honest with you. If the Ravens move on from Harbaugh, which I don't think they will do, there would be a lot of teams. And I'll give you the number one team I would send him to would be Chicago, who I don't think that Caleb Williams thinks is good, but comes down how Kingsbury can get the offense. Yeah, it is. It really is. It really is. Eckler has lost a step. He looks like he's running in mud. Maybe I think I want to blame the Chargers, but the one thing about Eckler is that when they used him between the tackles, it was mind-boggling. You got maybe the best slot receiver in football, and you're running him between the tackles, even though he's like 205. So yeah, I think Brian Robinson could be a great running back, but he's I think at the combine ran like a 4.71, and he plays like a 4.71 guy, but he's a tough, hard-nosed between the tackles runner, and that's kind of like the only way that works is if he gets like 15 touchdowns. I think the Eckler Robinson combo could work, but I have some questions about the Washington offensive line. I think they got two good running backs. Eckler needs to play more as a receiver. Robinson needs to play more as a running back. Oh, I 100% agree with this. Denver Gator says, how much you want to bet Daniels at Washington has worse stats than Howell last year? Oh, yeah. Speaking of Howell still in Washington, no, it's funny, Perry. He's actually in Seattle, and if you scroll down the MVP list, there's a you can get Howell to be MVP for slightly less than Geno Smith, and I think Howell may get a few starts in Seattle. I really believe that. It'll be interesting. I'll talk about Seattle. I'm going east to west, so I haven't hit Seattle yet. Ravens 7-6. I think this year King Henry have his best seasons in the last 3 years. Facts Denver. Henry have 2,000 yards. Oh God. All right. Hold on. I'm going to touch base on this because I'm doing the AFC North next, and I got Baltimore. Did I skip Baltimore? I don't believe it. I actually, I didn't skip Baltimore, but for some reason or another, I don't have my because I had some notes here for Baltimore, but I have no idea where I put them at. I know for a fact here it is. Okay, I found Baltimore. I don't understand. Perry. By the way, will you maybe Raven 7-6 B more can shed some light on this because I don't understand it either. I don't understand Lamar missing OTA. Why, when he was upset about money, is in the contract drama. Yeah, he held out last year from OTAs, and he said he was doing it for money. Well, he got his money. Why isn't he in OTAs? This to me, Aaron Rodgers skipping OTA means nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I don't care if it's causing drama in New York. It doesn't mean anything. He knows that offense forwards and backwards. Lamar Jackson, when they're trying to expand the playbook, not being there, I think is a problem. Patrick Mahomes is there. He's in OTAs. Kelsey's at OTAs. Lamar not being there to me is a bigger story. I would say Hollywood Brown. I agree completely. I was kind of upset about drafting Worthy because we already signed Hollywood Brown to a 1-year deal. So, I was really floored about Lamar skipping OTAs because the new offensive coordinator came from Georgia. I'm drawing a blank on his name. That's like the fifth or sixth time I've drawn a blank today, but I know he's trying to expand the offense. They're trying to make it a little more complicated, and him not being there is a big problem. A-Rod has an excuse to miss coming off the Achilles. Here's the deal. Aaron Rodgers knows that offense. Nathaniel Hackett, he had him in Green Bay. Nobody knows that offense better than Aaron Rodgers, maybe Hackett. Lamar, I don't get this at all, and it's a problem. Mahomes, too worthy. Do you think the Walker, running back from Seahawks, can break out? So I'm going to talk about Seattle. That's a great question. If you don't mind, when I get to Seattle, bring it up here. I would love for this to happen, but I'm going to go over my Ravens MVP list, and my MVP dark horse is Kyle Hamilton. And when he played against the Chiefs, he had 11 tackles. Roquan Smith had 16, and Roquan Smith might be the best linebacker in all of football. And inside linebackers never won MVP. Safeties never won MVP. But when Kyle Hamilton came out of the draft, people were saying, like, this is going to be a next Derwin James. And I kept saying he's not Derwin James. And I'm right. He's better. He's playing against the Chiefs. I swear there's 3 of them. He's covering passes in the backfield. He's stuffing running backs at the line of scrimmage. He's blitzing. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, here's a guy, 81 tackles, 4 interceptions, 1 touchdown, 3 sacks, and he's only 23 years old. I really think that – now, keep in mind, the Ravens lost a lot of their coaching staff. Mike McDonald took a lot of that coaching staff to Baltimore with him. Or I'm sorry. Mike McDaniel, defensive coordinator, left. Anthony Weaver, defensive line coach, is actually a defensive coordinator in Miami. Kyle Hamilton has a chance to make NFL history by being the first safety to be NFL MVP. And I think he's got a really good chance because I watched him against the Chiefs, and I swear there's 3 of those guys. It was just crazy. He is so good. He is so good. I missed over this. So no, they got Hollywood Brown. They got Worthy. They got weapons. But yeah, Monaghan. Yeah, Monaghan. And Monaghan was trying to expand the offense. We can't do it now. If the Chiefs and the Ravens play in the playoffs and the same thing happens, I'm going to go all the way back to OTAs because Patrick Mahomes is at OTAs. For some reason, Lamar Jackson is not. I think it's a big deal. Zero concerned about Aaron Rodgers. I wouldn't go to OTAs about Aaron Rodgers because he's been in that offense for several years. Very few people have the knowledge that Aaron Rodgers has. You can say Mahomes doesn't need to be there. I get that, but yeah, you guys. It was funny. Luke G. Fielder, he wanted him, and I kept on telling people he's not Derwin James. He's not that good. You know he's not that good. He's better. I got to eat a lot of crow because Kyle Hamilton. I'm watching that game against the Chiefs, and I'm like, there's 3 of that. And by the way, Roquan Smith had 16 tackles that game. Roquan Smith may be the best middle linebacker in all of football. If you want to tell me Roquan Smith could win NFL MVP, I'd hear that. Kyle Hamilton could be the first NFL MVP who plays safety because he doesn't play safety. There's like 4 of him out there. It's fucking crazy. He does everything. It's insane. It really is insane. He's that good, and he's 23. He's just getting better. I know they got defensive coaches and everywhere. Kyle Hamilton can do things that I don't think I've seen a defensive player do before. And by the way, yeah, when you guys picked JMO, a lot of people said Kyle Hamilton, and I told people you're going to be disappointed, and I was wrong. JMO with that wide receiver will still make a great 1 minute. I'm going to talk about the Lions here. Yeah, yeah, and what a great job. By the way, like the last 5 years, is there a team that drafts better than Baltimore over the last 5 years? Yeah. All right. With Derrick Henry, I love Derrick Henry. Running backs 30 or more don't get better. Derrick Henry's absorbed a lot of punishment over the years. I'm pulling for him. He's not the same guy. I hate saying it. But he's just not the same guy. There was a reason he was being phased out in Tennessee. There was a reason why they gave Tony Pollard more money than Baltimore gave Derrick Henry. He's not the same guy. He's going to have flashes. Let's hope it's not week 1 against Kansas City. He's going to have flashes where he has 32 carries, 145 yards. And he's also going to have games where he has 20 carries and 50 yards. But Kyle Hamilton, I think, could make NFL history. There is no ceiling on what he can be. That's where I see him. Denver Gators, speaking of JMOs, that guy I forgot. We're talking about Detroit. I'm doing the AFC North first and the NFC North. Do you think Rice will play? Yeah, Rice will play this year. Do you think he'll smart up? And I think he will. He's saying all the right things. Hopefully this is a come to Jesus type of moment. I think he will. I think this will all be in about 5 months from now, nobody will be talking about this. And I think he'll be the Chiefs' number 1 receiver. Yeah, and I think you'll have Worthy. I think you have Hollywood Brown. And there's a couple other guys on this roster that may surprise. But I think Rice will be number 1 wide receiver. And I think this whole offseason will just be like a blip. And we'll just kind of move on. But yeah, I do think Henry will 800 to 1,000 yards. He's not the same guy. And I hope I'm wrong about that because I love Derrick Henry. Except for week 1. I want him to suck week 1. Have like 5 fumbles. But yeah, Kyle Hamilton has a very good chance to be defensive MVP. And if a defensive player can ever win MVP who's a secondary player, it's Kyle Hamilton. There's one other guy that I'm going to bring up. Derrick Henry, for the first time in his career, will not be the center of attention of defenses. You have to account for Lamar, Mark Andrews, and Zay Flowers. Derrick can be a monster. I hope so, man. I just know that running backs get to 30, especially running backs that take a lot of punishment, like Derrick Henry has. I hope you're right, man. I just think that his best days are really behind him. And even though he's playing with a really good offensive line, and you have Lamar Jackson and you have some weapons, I just don't see. I think he'll have flashes, but I don't think he'll be I just don't think we'll see it. I hope so, man. I like Rice. I think he turned to a great wide receiver. I have his rookie cards. I really think so, because like coming out of SMU, he was considered a smart, really talented receiver. Can he learn the route tree? Really started to catch things on, and all indications that he was a good locker room guy. He was a smart kid. He was a good kid. Look, money and fame makes people do stupid things, and let's hope he learned from this because he's got talent. Is Andrews healthy? Can he stay healthy? They got another tight end, even though he played receiver at Coastal Carolina. drawing a blank on the guy's name, but he started playing really well in Andrew's absence. So it's kind of like, Mark who? No, I'm playing. He's not that good, but he started playing really, really, really well. They got some weapons, man. They got some weapons. They really do. They really do. They really do. Isaiah Likely. Yeah, that dude played receiver in college. He's 6'4", 245, 250. He has to play tight end in the NFL. He is really, really good. And I think what will happen is, it's sad to say, but you see this. Sometimes you move on, and it wouldn't surprise me if they move on from Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. And by the way, if you haven't seen Isaiah Likely play, he's amazing. Isaiah Likely has a chance to be, but he's not the guy I have, because Kyle Hamilton's the guy I have. But Isaiah Likely is the guy that it wouldn't surprise me if he becomes the best player on the Ravens offense besides Lamar Jackson, of course. Now, keep in mind that offensive line is really shaping up, looking good. Andrew Voorhees going to be put into the starting rotation. Didn't they draft somebody too? I should know this, but my dark horse MVP is Kyle Hamilton. No defensive backs ever won the award, but he's not the average defensive back. So he has got a new kicker. Who did? Not Baltimore. Cleveland Browns dark horse. How did the tight end you drafted from TCU do an OTA? By the way, he's looking really good. And it's kind of funny because Kelsey was a high school quarterback who turned tight end. And Lions did. Okay. And that's exactly what this kid did. He entered TCU. He's the quarterback. Then he put on some weight. Super athletic. And so far he's looking good. They're giving him number 12 too, which is kind of cool. Like seriously, in 5 years from now, I wouldn't surprise me if he's doing the same things that Kelsey's doing, like 80, 85. He's Chiefs are going to use a lot of different personnels. He's going to place this. It wouldn't surprise me he has 30, 40 catches this year, even though he's 4th round pick. So a little love for one pride here. Cleveland Browns. I called him JOK. I'm going to butcher the name. Jeremiah Owasu Koromora. Last year, 101 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 2 interceptions. Last year, Jim Schwartz took over the defense, and the defense gave up the fewest yards in the NFL. It's like 13th points first in yards. The defense is really good. Myles Garrett, is always a defensive MVP candidate. Myles Garrett is phenomenal. But the way that JOK is being used, he's kind of a positionless player. Most people are calling him a linebacker, but he really plays like all over the field. He does everything. And year 3, by the way, he wasn't a 1st round pick, so he's entering year 4. It's a contract year. And year 3 was his best year. This is going to be a guy who's going to compete for defensive MVP honors if his play increases. And I think under Jim Schwartz year 2, I think they're going to use him in some different ways. I love this guy's game. He does just about everything. He's my dark horse. I'm not going to go with Myles Garrett. I think it's too obvious. JOK might be the best player on that Browns defense next year, and that's saying a lot because I love Myles Garrett. Dan, I will say the LA Chargers can be a sneaky good dark horse. It could be because, Harbaugh's first year in San Francisco, he went 13-3. And the talent is there. And I'll talk about the Chargers later because I'm going, east to west. So I'm going north and then south and then west. But I think it's going to take at least 1 year to change things around because they're going from a finesse team to more of a smash mouth team. And I think the change is going to kind of take a little bit of time. And I also think that he needs some help on that defensive line specifically, even though they're able to get their outside edge rushers. You got the other Bosa. I wouldn't say Nick, but Joey Bosa. When Joey Bosa plays, he's as good as anybody. At Khalil Mack on the other side. But I do think it's going to be a 1 year turnover but the talent's there. So, are you talking Bats, the kicker? He had the same kicking percentage as Mike D. 70 or 75 fans are hyping up Bats too much because he hit 175-yard field goal. All right. There will be no preseason. No. I want to hear opinions that are different than mine. This is awesome. God, the comments are A+ tonight. I love this. This is so great. God, the comments are fucking awesome. Keaton Talk Sports says, watch out for Chicago. They can be a sneaky wild card team if things play out right. Yeah, they could, because the defense is amazing. The defense is amazing. I haven't hit Chicago yet. I haven't hit the NFC North yet, but I'm going to get about that. This is awesome. Jake Bates, the USFL kicker. God, if both of them can say, I'm going to talk about the Chargers here and later in the show, but yeah, Browns, JOK. Okay. Pittsburgh is my craziest dark horses, because neither of them have played it down. They're both the third round picks, Peyton Wilson and Roman Wilson. I think by the time the season ends, Roman Wilson's already a starter per ESPN. I think when everything is said and done, Roman Wilson's going to be the number one receiver, not Pickens. And the reason why is Pickens has the athletic talent. He doesn't have the temperament. And I really don't think Tomlin's going to put up with this. Wilson is the number one receiver at Michigan. He doesn't need to put up the stats. He's already used to this, where a team is a run-heavy team, and then he's the go-to guy on third down. I think Roman Wilson, I'm going to try to put out a fantasy football dark horse special before the start of the season. Get Roman Wilson after like round 10, because I think he's going to be the number one receiver in Pittsburgh when everything's said and done. You watch third down. I think Russell Wilson, maybe Justin Fields starts looking at Roman Wilson and not Pickens. Don't be surprised. Peyton Wilson sliding to the third round was a medical issue. He was the best linebacker in college football, off-ball linebacker, if we got to go that way. Patrick Queen, big signing by the Steelers. This guy has all the talent in the world. 6'6", like 235, 240, ran a 4.46, had a couple pick sixes last year, 6 sacks, can do everything. Just never been able to stay healthy for seasons. Last year, he healthy the whole season, best linebacker in football. Peyton Wilson could be the best linebacker in football if he stays healthy. It'll be fun. But yeah, these are super dark horses. All right. I think the Vikings and Bears could surprise this year. I think both are going to hover around 500. I think the Bears defense are going to put them in a lot of games, and I'll talk about the Bears here in a little bit. And then the Vikings, the defense improves, and Darnold, who I always liked, could be a tough time. The NFC North is quietly a really tough division. A lot of people don't realize it. You guys do. But I think around the NFL, a lot of people are kind of overlooking the NFC North. You had 2 playoff teams, and I can make a strong case that Minnesota and Chicago both got better. Tough division. Us and the Packers have tough go versus them both. Yeah, I think so. I think the NFC North is going to be a brutal division, and people aren't talking about it, but you got 2 playoff teams from last year, and then you got 2 teams that got better. Minnesota 2 years ago went 13-4. People gloss over that. The Bears defense last half of the season was as good as anybody. So yeah, that's it. Wilson stays healthy. I'm talking Peyton Wilson, maybe you mean Russell Wilson. I like Green Bay. I think Green Bay is going to be good. I haven't gotten to the NFC North. I'm about ready to. I'm going to bring up the Bengals, and then I'm diving right into the NFC North. Cincinnati Bengals, my dark horse is Myles Murphy. Myles Murphy only had 20 tackles and 3 sacks last year. But if you remember during the offseason, Trey Hendrickson, who set a Bengals record after going 14.5 sacks a couple of years ago, 17.5 last year. Now, he demanded a trade, but he recanted. But it wouldn't surprise me if Myles Murphy starts playing really – what the hell is this? All right, sorry about that. If Myles Murphy starts playing really well, don't be surprised if Hendrickson gets traded mid-season at the trade deadline. I mean, we've seen this the last couple years where, we saw it with Chase Young going to San Francisco 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? 3 years ago. Von Miller went to the Rams for some draft picks, and it wouldn't surprise me if this happens because Myles Murphy has all the talent in the world. Lou Anaruno's defense is going to be good. They drafted a couple defensive tackles I really like in the second and third round in this last draft. I was really high on the Bengals draft, by the way. Myles Murphy is not a starter right now, but he was the first-round pick. He was the guy the Chiefs really were trying to trade up for. They tried to make a trade with Dallas. Dallas said no, they drafted Mazi Smith. A lot of Chiefs fans think that the Chiefs wanted Mazi Smith. No, they wanted Myles Murphy. This guy has an unlimited ceiling, but he's not a starter. But note, the Bengals are my team to go from first to worst. All right. Sorry, Ravens 7-6B more. I think the Bengals will be the winner of that division this year. But Baltimore's no slouch. I mean, I'm a big Ravens fan, but I mean, I think the Bengals are 1 year, every team goes first to worst. But let's I mean, the AFC North's tough. The NFC North's tough, so let's be honest. But I think there's a strong chance Myles Murphy if he gets a starting lineup, he's not going to let go. Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of football to go. So we'll find out. Let's dive into the NFC North. Packers should be good if Love can repeat or get better. Look out, the Packers got hot at the right time. Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot to talk about with the Packers. I got some news on the Packers. The NFC West, there's a lot of divisions. There's a lot of divisions. And by the way, I want to keep you around, but I can't lie to you either. I got the Bengals as my worst first team. Team does it every year. I got the Bengals, but we'll see. We will see. My NFC North dark horses. I'm gonna start with the Detroit Lions here, and my dark horse MVP is David Montgomery. Now, David Montgomery had 3 100-yard rushing games in the first 9 weeks of the season, but in the playoff loss against the 49ers, they used him. He had 15 carries, 93 yards, and a touchdown, 2 receptions for 20 yards. If you remember, Jameson Williams had that fumble that really kick-started the comeback because it was, if I remember, it was either 24-14 or 24-21. Then he had that fumble. 49ers quickly scored a touchdown, and things went bad. But David Montgomery was the guy that was really killing the 49ers, not Jamar Gibbs. And a lot of people think that Gibbs is going to have this breakout season. I'm looking more at David Montgomery being the guy because if you have this great offensive line, Jameson Williams is going to step up. Now, is he going to step up and be 50 catches, 750 yards, and 5 touchdowns, or can he be a 1,000-yard receiver? You have a deep threat. Everybody's going to be watching Amon-Ra now because he got all that money. Jameson Williams physically is more talented than Amon-Ra. Amon-Ra's got that dog that I don't think Jameson really has. Because let's face it, Jameson Williams wasn't even the number 1 guy at Bama. It was Jerry Jeudy. You have Laporta. So you got weapons. I really think that if this team leans on Montgomery, and Montgomery's never been that dude. He's had a few 1,000-yard seasons, but he's never been that like MVP caliber guy. It wouldn't surprise me if the Lions just say, look, you're going to be that 20-touch guy. Because honestly, if he was carrying the ball instead of Gibbs, 15 carries, 93 yards and a touchdown, 2 receptions, 20 yards, maybe he should have got the ball a lot more. But the Lions' dark horse MVP, I'm looking at David Montgomery, and I really, really think that there's a good chance the Lions may use Montgomery a lot more than Gibbs this year, even though everybody thinks Gibbs is going to be a number one guy. Don't be surprised if it's flip-flop. So, yeah, that's my dark horse for the Lions here. I think T-Law got overbid. I don't, because in a couple of years from now, it's going to be a middle-of-the-pack type of deal. You got your quarterback. Now you got to build the rest of the team. Remember, they got a new defensive coordinator. I haven't talked about Jacksonville yet, but I got them. Talented team, yeah. Laporta might really break out this season. There's no reason he can't get better. It could be a top 5. I think he will be a top 5 tight end. And I think that you get Amon-Ra, you got Jameson Williams, you got Laporta, you got Jameson Williams, but I think Montgomery might be the secret glue that holds everybody together, because if you keep pounding Montgomery, you can't stack the box against this team if Jameson Williams steps up this year. So if Jameson Williams becomes a viable number 2, which to be honest with you, the options are going to be Amon-Ra, Laporta, Williams, Gibbs in receiving category. You don't stock the box, so why not run Montgomery a little more? That's my thought process. But I've always been a big David Montgomery fan. I think he might be the secret. So, but yeah, I think there's no question that Laporta could be a top 5 tight end. And I say this because Chiefs fans, I remember Keys like, you can't say Kelsey slowed down. He had that 22-mile-an-hour play in the Super Bowl. Yeah, Kelsey slowed down significantly. But is he still a really good tight end? Yeah, but if you told me going into the season who's going to have a better 2024, Laporta or Kelsey, I'm probably going to say Laporta statistically. But 3rd and 5, who do I want making that catch? Probably Kelsey. Do I think Lawrence takes a step back? No, I think he takes a step forward. And the reason why is you get a young receiver, Brian Thomas Jr. They traded down. They got him at 23. Perry loves Brian Thomas Jr. Massive upside as far as physical talent. Gabriel Davis, not a bad player, but I mean, there's talent. I think Lawrence makes a step up this year. I don't think he takes a step back at all, but I'd love to hear what you guys think. Trevor Lawrence was my MVP pick last year and didn't even come close. So, yeah, you're right. T-Law fails. Jacksonville will be hooped or whatever, but yeah, strong runner in the middle. And so when you spread a defense out, don't you want to run right up the middle? 49ers had a really good defense. Montgomery is running through them like a hot knife through butter. So, yeah. And you're right. He's had a hard time saying no. All these MVP candidates I'm giving out are guys that really need to stay healthy, and some other things need to happen. Green Bay, my guy is Rashawn Gary, who I just think has all the talent in the world. Now, keep in mind, you're going to new defensive coordinator Jeff Hatley, who took over as Boston College head coach. He's coming back to the NFL. He's a former NFL defensive backs coach. A super dark horse is one of my favorite draft picks. That's Javon Bullard. He's 2nd-round pick out of Georgia. Surprised everybody by putting on a good show at the combine. He's undersized. He's like 5'10", 195. He's going to play some slot corner. He's going to play some free safety. He's going to play some strong safety. I'm really curious because, let's be honest, Jeff Hatley's been a head coach at Boston College. What's he going to do defensively in Green Bay? It's going to be interesting to find out. I think they're going to run kind of a college type of scheme, which is, the standard 3-3-5. But being a former NFL defensive backs coach, a super, super dark horse would be a second-round pick out of Georgia, who I was told interviewed better than any college player in like the last 10 years. Around the Sticks podcast, Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks, they said they talked to several people. They're like, nobody interviewed better than Javon Bullard. Some teams were thinking he'd be a 3-4 round draft pick. They bumped him up just for the interview. And that's hard to do. But Bullard's a guy that can do a lot of different things. On tape, looks really, really good. Smaller guy. They were worried about speed. Ran I think 4.49, 4.47. Not a guy who's going to be that off the charts athlete, but he's a guy that could really surprise and be a really good player. But Rashawn Gary, I think in this defense, could be a star. Lucas Van Ness is a guy, that first round pick out of Rutgers, or I'm sorry, out of Iowa. Oh my God, Keys is going to hate that, but not a starter. So it'll be interesting. Thomas Jr. will be a star and should have a day one impact. The T-Law can't turn into a real superstar quarterback. The Jags are in trouble. No, there's no excuse. You got Gabriel Davis. You spent a lot of money on Christian Kirk. Evan Ingram is a tight end in name only. I think he had 108 catches last year. He almost set the single season tight end record. Now you add a guy that's got unlimited potential in Brian Thomas Jr. And I didn't have him as the number one receiver like you do, but the upside's crazy. So I agree. The Bears season comes down. If Williams plays well, I think the defense. We'll talk Bears here. Matter of fact, I'll talk Bears next. My NFL MVP for the Chicago Bears is Tremaine Edmonds. And Edmonds just turned 26. He had 113 tackles, 4 interceptions, including a pick 6. Now, TJ Edwards, the other free agent linebacker, is the one who actually led the team in tackles. He had like 155. Is there a more iconic position on defense than middle linebacker for the Chicago Bears? Butkus, Singletary, Urlacher. Tremaine Edmonds needs to be that guy. Now, it's interesting because their new defensive coordinator is Eric Williams. He comes over from Buffalo to where Tremaine Edmonds played. Now, Tremaine Edmonds entered the NFL at either 19 or 20. He was a redshirt sophomore out of Virginia Tech. He was 255, who ran a 4.55. And there was talk that maybe he should play defensive line. The Bills were using him in a Tampa 2 type of scheme. Here's a 260-pound linebacker in pass coverage, which I thought never made sense. So when he signed that big free agent deal with the Bears, I thought they were going to try to become a little bigger and a little more physical, but they use him more in pass coverage. There's no ceiling to how good Tremaine Edmonds can be. You got the former Bills defensive line coach coming over. There's a good chance. Denver Gator, man, good. I'm glad you popped in, man. I'll talk to you later, brother. There's no ceiling on how good Tremaine Edmonds can be. No ceiling. TJ Edwards put up better stuff. Oh, yeah, you guys nailed the chat, man. I know you got other things you got to do, Denver Gator, but this show's always better with you here. So, did the Bears still have a undrafted free agent quarterback that played okay after? Yeah, they still got that guy. I forgot his name, but yeah, he's the backup quarterback right now. But I'm hearing early on in OTAs that the defense is dominating. And I think that's a bad thing for the Chicago Bears. But Tremaine Edmonds is a guy that could be the next great middle linebacker for the Chicago Bears. Is a middle linebacker going to be an NFL MVP? You got to do something crazy good. But here's the deal. If Caleb Williams can play like he did in college, Tremaine Edmonds has a chance to be a superstar. So we'll find out. The Minnesota Vikings dark horse, I got is Dallas Turner, who's never played it down in the NFL, but I really thought that this was the best defensive player. Some of you thought it was Latu. I thought it was Turner. I had Turner rated just as high as Will Anderson. Will Anderson has a little more size, but Dallas Turner has everything it takes to be a superstar. He's going to a complex defense under Brian Flores. How fast can he get up to speed? But if he gets up to speed fast, he could be a stud. Yeah, I've been seeing the same thing, and I think the Bears really messed up by naming him the starter right away. I think it's a disaster, and it's a shame because that defense looks like it could be really, really good. I really think the defense could be really, really good. So we'll find out. But Dallas Turner, if he picks up, these are dark horses. These are dark horses. I think Justin Jefferson's pretty obvious. Nobody has Dallas Turner. But if Dallas Turner starts playing lights out, you're going to get consideration for defensive MVP. Is there a chance he wins NFL MVP as a rookie? Almost none. But, I mean, if he does the same thing Danielle Hunter did in 16.5 sacks, and I'll be honest, people aren't really want to give Sam Darnold the MVP candidacy. They want to give it to Justin Jefferson. Now, if Justin Jefferson's play drops or if Jordan Addison plays out of his mind, it's hard to say, but like Justin Jefferson's an obvious choice. These are dark horses, so I'm going with Dallas Turner. Now we'll go to the AFC South, where the Houston Texans, I had Nico Collins. Nico Collins signed a big extension this offseason. Last year, 80 catches, 1,297 yards, 8 touchdowns. I was not very fond of the Diggs thing because if Diggs goes to Houston, Diggs needs to be Robin. He doesn't need to be Batman. He needs to be the second-tier guy, not the main guy. So, yeah, I mean, I do. Brian Flores is fantastic. It's just the defense is a little complicated. Coming from Alabama, I think he can handle it. That's why he's my dark horse, because the talent is off the chart, but you never know how rookie's going to do in the NFL. I think he's just as talented as Will Anderson, who went to a Pro Bowl. So that's the way I see it. Diggs needs to realize he's the number 2 receiver. He can be the key guy on third down, but Nico Collins has to make that step up. Keep in mind, though, Nico Collins has to do something crazy to take the MVP away from C.J. Stroud, who's a top-tier MVP candidate. I mean, C.J. Stroud is the number 4 guy, tied for second on ESPN bets and DraftKings. So, in order for Nico Collins to bypass C.J. Stroud, he's got to do something insane. But let's be honest, if Houston's really good, C.J. Stroud, and he deserves it. With the Colts, there's so many different guys I could look at, but the guy I think may surprise people who's in a contract season is Kwity Paye. Now, Kwity Paye was a former first-round pick. This is year 4. He went from 4 sacks to 6 sacks to 8.5. There's a chance that he gets into double digits. I loved his game coming out of Michigan. He was just raw. Is this year everything comes together? Because you have Latu on the other side, or Latu, and you got Ikeban, Samson Ikeban, something like that. Got to play in some shootouts, and you got to get a lot of sacks. Could Kwity Paye have that Lawrence Taylor type season? I think he's got the potential, but 4, 6, 8.5. There has to be a massive jump. I mean, 18.5 sacks in 3 years. That's not bad. Your former first-round pick. But if he gets 18.5 this year, that fifth-year option, that's a no-brainer. But he could easily hold out. That will get interesting. AFC South is Houston's to lose. It should be. It should be. I think the AFC South is going to be interesting because you have Jacksonville, And nobody knows what to think of the Colts because nobody knows what Anthony Richardson can or can't do. But my dark horse in Indianapolis, would he pay? But there's so many guys offensively, including Anthony Richardson. Jacksonville, my dark horse is Josh Allen, 17.5 sacks last year. Your new defensive coordinator is Ryan Nielsen, who's a former defensive line coach. I'm hearing all sorts of great things about Trayvon Walker. They're going to use him inside, outside. Trayvon Walker had 10 sacks last year. Maybe the best athlete, size speed athlete on Jacksonville, but the best pass rusher is Josh Allen. Again, 17.5 sacks, and nobody looked at Josh Allen and said, okay, you're the best player on the Jags. You know, people said, you know, Trevor Lawrence, Travis Etienne had a good year. There's a chance he beat 17.5. I don't think people realize what a good pass rusher Josh Allen is. I would not be surprised if he leads the NFL in sacks. But in order to win MVP, he's got to do something crazy. And he's good enough to do that. I don't think people realize how good he is. Yeah, if AR-15 can play. By the way, he doesn't like being called AR-15. He changed the number to 5, but we all know. Yeah, it all comes down to him. I have no faith in the Tennessee Titans being a good team this year. But if they are going to be a good team, you get a first-time defensive coach in Denard Wilson. I actually remember him playing. If he turns his defense around, which is going to be hard to do, then I think Harold Landry or Jeffrey Simmons. Jeffrey Simmons is the best player on this team. Let's be very clear. Harold Landry could be the best pass rusher. He had 12 sacks 3 years ago. Then 2 years ago, sat out. Last year, he had 10.5. And here's the drill. This is a team. This is a division that's got Trevor Lawrence, who signed that record deal. C.J. Stroud, who's an MVP favorite. And then you got a young guy in Will Levis. So you got some teams that look like they're going to throw the ball a lot. So, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Landry gets double digits in sacks. Again, I just don't think this is going to be a good team, so it's hard for me to really get behind anybody. Simmons is the best player on the Tennessee team. By the way, I'm fully aware that L'Jarius Sneed is now in Tennessee, but I don't know how they're going to do under a new defensive coordinator. But we'll see. Yeah, I agree completely. Tennessee has some good talent. How's everything going to come together with a brand new defensive coordinator? I don't think this is going to be a good team. I don't think this is going to be a good team. NFC South, we talked about defensive backs, but Antoine Winfield Jr. was the best safety in football last year. 122 tackles, 6 sacks, 3 interceptions, 6 forced fumbles. He was 7th in defensive MVP voting. And I mean, I really think that he could actually improve. This is a really, really, really good football player. A lot of people don't know about. Antoine Winfield Jr. is just unbelievable. And he has an excellent opportunity to be even better. Is he a legitimate MVP candidate? I really don't think so. But God, he is so good. And I just, it really bothers me because Tampa Bay is kind of a small market. People don't realize what a great player. This is the best safety in football right now, as far as I'm concerned. The Saints, the dark horse is Chase Young, whose rookie season, he looked like he was going to be a game changer and hasn't been able to come back to form. They signed a 1-year deal. Now, Alvin Kamara is interesting because you got Clint Kubiak coming over from San Francisco. And I was like, well, Kamara can do everything that CMC can do. But his play's kind of dipped the last 2 years. And he's 29, almost 30. And he's holding out right now, which I don't really like. They drafted Kendry Miller in the third round of TCU last year. And I really kind of like the Kendry Miller, Clint Kubiak fit because he's a guy, he's not a speed guy, but I play out of Kamara that Christian McCaffrey can do. I also, he might have lost a step. So, there it is. The Bucs are one of my teams that can take a step back this year. Bowles is one of my hot seat. He was one of my major hot seat guys last year, and they turned things around. I had Atlanta winning this division easily after they signed Cousins because I assumed that they were going to take a pass rusher in round one, not a quarterback. But that NFC South is kind of up for grabs, to be honest with you. So we'll find out. But if Tampa Bay doesn't play well, Bulls, I do agree Bulls on hot seat if the Bucs take a step back. I've never been a Bulls guy, even though I think defense is really good. Atlanta is Kyle Pitts. Everybody knows about Cousins, but John Robinson's a well-known name. Kyle Pitts, listen, Kyle Pitts is a 6'6" tight end. In 44 games, he has 6 touchdowns. How is that possible? I know Cousins and John Robinson are the bigger names, but I really think that in order for the Falcons, because I don't think the defense is going to be good. I really don't. I think Cousins really needs to play in some high-scoring games, and I think Pitts will need to do something crazy. The only way Kyle Pitts can win MVP is if he does something out of his mind, like 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns. And even then, because I remember for the Saints with Drew Brees had similar type of numbers. Trying to blank on his name. He didn't even get considerations. But yeah, I mean, you're right, King Cousins and Pitts. Because here's the deal: if Cousins goes down, Penix in college drew a lot of jump balls. The 6'6" tight end's the guy I'm going to. That's why he's my super dark horse. Realistically, Cousins and John Robinson are much more likely candidates to be MVP than Kyle Pitts. But the talent is just crazy. And how do you have 6 touchdowns in 3 seasons? How? You're a 6'6" dude. That's got to change. The Carolina Panthers are my only team that I'm picking a quarterback because the Carolina Panthers can go from 2 to 9 wins easier than anybody. The problem is they lost about 4 or 5 defensive starters. And their best player is Derek Brown. They wisely gave Derek Brown a lot of money. He had 103 tackles, 2 sacks, and an interception last year. Derek Brown is the best player on that team, bar none. It's not even close. He lost the other 4 to 5 best defensive players via free agency. It was crazy. They did mass exodus on defensive players in Carolina. So Derek Brown will not be able to win MVP because I don't think the defense is going to be any good. Because the defense is not going to be good, Bryce Young has an opportunity to put up some monster numbers this year. Bryce Young, there is a number for Bryce Young to win MVP, and I think there's a strong chance that if Carolina wins 9 or 10 games, just 9 or 10, and Bryce Young puts up like 5,000 yards, which is going to sound crazy, but that's actually very, very viable. It really is. I mean, he doesn't have a ton of talent, but he's got a youth. Xavier Legette, your first-round pick, super talented, raw as hell. Jonathan Mingo, talented guy, raw as hell, didn't pan out. There's some players that can play. You have a new offense. Their offensive coordinator is now the head coach in Carolina. He turns it around. Bryce Young could be MVP. I think it's a lot more likely to Bryce Young be MVP than almost any other player in the NFC South, because if Bryce Young, because I think the defense is going to be bad, even though Derek Brown is phenomenal. And it bothers me because most of you don't know how good Derek Brown on a winning team in a big market is maybe the best defensive tackle in football. Maybe. He's that good. 103 tackles as a defensive lineman is insane. Perry says if the Saints are in the middle of the road team this season, I agree completely. And I think the Saints might, if they don't make the playoffs, I think the Saints could just blow that team completely up and move on from Dennis Allen, get it, do everything. Because there's a lot of age in that defense and the offense. They drafted Fuega. They got to fix the offensive line. Kamara is 29. It's Saints are kind of in a weird team. I think the Panthers should have made a move for Brian Thomas Jr. Legette's high risk, high reward. Jonathan Brooks coming off an ACL tear. I'm hearing he's going to be fine for the season opener. And was it Jatavian Sanders, 4th round pick out of Texas? Could have gone in the 2nd round. I wouldn't have blinked. Ran a bad 40 time. The only thing that kept him down. He could be the starter, even though they got Tommy Tremble, and he's a guy I really like. So I'm going to go with the AFC West here. Let's be honest. If the Chiefs are halfway decent, it's going to be Mahomes. And Chris Jones made a lot of money, but the player who led the team in sacks with Chris Jones had 10.5, and that's George Karlaftis. Now, Chris Jones is 30. George Karlaftis just turned 23. George Karlaftis is going to lead the team in sacks this year. George Karlaftis would have to do something out of his mind to be MVP on a team with Patrick Mahomes. But again, this is a dark horse list. George Karlaftis is going to lead this team in sacks this year. And even though PFF doesn't really like him all that much, a lot of people don't know what's going on. George Karlaftis, really, really, really good player. They actually did fix the cap, but Kamara's holding out. He wants more money. I thought they had the deal worked out with him. They lost a couple of their offensive linemen. They got some age on defense, but yeah, they got to do some. They got to make some moves. But they're also a team that if they win the division, why? Is Derek Carr? Can he? The Saints' offensive line has questions. Let's just say that's fixed. Then you find out how good Derek Carr is. This is going to be a new era because you have a new offense for like the first time in 20 years, almost. If this offense works out, the defense I think is going to be good. PFF is garbage. I cannot stand PFF. You will get no argument from PFF here. My Denver Broncos dark horse is Javonte Williams, who I know that I've been listening to talking in the Broncos OTAs that Williams isn't even the best running back. And I get that and I understand, but Javonte Williams really needs to carry this team, and they need to use them a lot like the Saints use. I really think needs to double that. And 4.9 yards of reception means they're not really using them downfield. He's never going to. Last year, 3.6 yards, 217 carries, 770 yards. I'm telling you this because I watched play. He wasn't recovering from that injury. He needs to have a bigger workload. I mean, 200 touches is not. If he can handle another 100, which is a lot to ask, I mean, it's only 6 touches a game. He's going to be in the Pro Bowl, and he's my dark horse for the Broncos. But let's be clear: Bo Nix needs to play well for the Broncos to do well. The Raiders, who we talked about earlier, Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins. Christian Wilkins went from 3.5 sacks last year to 9. And Max Crosby gets the pub, and he deserves it. On a playoff team, Max Crosby might have been Defensive Player of the Year. Christian Wilkins is my dark horse because you're going to be able to double team Crosby. He's the bigger name. If Wilkins starts stuffing the run and gets double digits in sacks, he could be the first defensive tackle since Alan Page. It's hard to say because you're in a tough division, but you're in a passing division, so you're going to be able to put up numbers sack wise if you can get the opportunity. There is a good chance that they double team Wilkins. Crosby gets a lot of sacks, but what I'm thinking is if they double team Crosby, Wilkins may just blow up this year and do something crazy. I'm going to talk about the Cardinals here in a bit, but Perry says if Murray can play well, the Cards are a playoff team at minimum. The Cards should be challenging for the NFC West crown. I think it's a lot more. The defense was just terrible last year. The defense needs to improve, and they did some really good things in the draft. I really like what they did in the draft. I also like what they did in the offseason, too. They got some good players on defense. They need to fix the defense. I'm going to talk about the Cardinals in some detail here in just a bit. I think the Raiders, here's the problem with the Raiders. The offense is going to be bad. I don't see any way that this offense is going to be any good. So the Raiders need to win a lot of 21-17 games. That's why I think Wilkins might be more important because he's going to stuff the run. If he stuffs the run and gets 10 to 12 sacks, he's going to be in consideration. Max Crosby's the bigger name, but I mean, here's the deal. The Raiders, there's no way that this offense is going to be good. No way. That's why they're kind of low on my list. I'm going to talk about the Cardinals here in just a few minutes, but yeah, by the way, if they're not at least a 500 team, they can move on from their head coach really easily because they had a really good draft. I'll talk about that in a bit. My Chargers dark horse is J.K. Dobbins, who played for John Harbaugh in the NFL, and he played at Ohio State. And by the way, look at his Ohio State numbers. They're just amazing. Here's the deal. J.K. Dobbins has been more injured than he's been healthy, but 24 games in his career, 234 carries, 1,347 yards. That's 5.8 yards a carry, 12 touchdowns, 27 receptions, 177 yards, and a touchdown. When he plays, he's a legitimate number one running back. He's a big guy. He's about 230 with home run speed. He's been injured more than he's played. If he ever plays a full season, he's a legitimate MVP candidate. That's not a lie. Harbaugh wants to run the ball. That's how he won national championship at Michigan. That's how he won with the 49ers. Gus Edwards and Dobbins, both from Baltimore, both from his brother. Gus Edwards is going to get shot, number one, but Gus Edwards is not a number one running back. Dobbins is. Dobbins stays healthy for 17 games. He will be a legitimate MVP candidate. Would I bet on him playing more than 12? No, I would not. Vegas has some talent on the offense. It could come down to the offensive coordinator to get them chemistry with some weapons and the O-line. Yeah, I mean, their offensive line, they lost their starting right tackle that they got to replace, but the offensive line's turning around pretty good. I like both their tight ends. It'll be interesting to see how they use Bowers because I don't know how creative they are. But the defense, I think, could be really good. That defensive line is going to be really talented, but I just don't see them being a good offense. I really don't. I really don't. I think it's kind of funny because I really think the Chiefs are going to win this division pretty easy and early, but Denver's, I think, going to be a 500 team. I don't know what the Raiders are going to be because the defensive line is going to be good. Offense is going to be bad. Let's see about how things work out. I do think Denver is going to hover around 500. It's just how quick do the Chargers adapt? I think it takes a year. Do you think the Chargers, if Dobbins stays healthy, absolutely not. If he breaks down, they will. And that's what they're Gus Edwards is going to be running back number one. Dobbins will get a chance to overtake him if he can prove he can stay healthy. Dobbins goes down, they will 100% bring in somebody. It'll be interesting to see what they do. The Chargers are going to be an entertaining team. I think they'll struggle this year, and then next year be the team to watch out for. Now we go to the NFC West, and there's so many. I mean, Christian McCaffrey is going to be on the cover of Madden. We talked about Purdy earlier. Both receivers made news, but the guy that might be the surprise MVP candidate is, I'm going to butcher the name, Talanofa Hufanga. Butchering that name. Best safety in football 2 years ago. Maybe the best safety in football until he got injured week 10. What they did is, I think they made a mistake. They fired Steve Wilkes, their defensive coordinator, and when they fired Wilkes, they brought in. Bear with me here. I'm having some technical difficulties here. So when they fired Wilkes, they went ahead and brought in their Nick Sorensen. He was their defensive line coach, okay, or their defensive back coach. So they replaced their old defensive coordinator with their defensive backs coach. Hufanga 2 years ago was the best safety in football. Kind of looks like and plays like Troy Polamalu. Bosa's the obvious one. Offense, they got a ton of weapons. Hufanga plays like he did 2 years ago. I think he deserves some consideration. BD Buster just got in, man. Well, welcome, man. Unfortunately, I'm 2.5 hours in, but you're not too late to give for me to give you my top 5 dark horse candidates for NFL MVP. I just want to go over the 3 other teams in the NFC West. So I'm going to give you my top 5. But any questions you have, I'm here to answer. But I'm 2.5 hours in, so I'm getting ready to wrap up. With the Rams, Kyren Williams. He missed 5 games, so he only played 12 games. 228 carries, 1,144 yards, 12 touchdowns, 32 receptions, 206 yards, and 3 touchdowns. 1,350 yards and 15 touchdowns. 12 games. They kept him off the roster the last game of the season, but he missed 4 games midseason. They went 1-3. After the injury, those next 6 games, 131 carries, 688 yards, 6 touchdowns, 24 receptions, 101 yards, and 2 touchdowns. They went 5-1 in those games. They needed to do that to get to the playoffs. Doing quick math, 155 touches in 6 games. That's a lot. 789 yards, 6 games. MVP numbers, 8 touchdowns. I love Stafford. Do I think Stafford's playing 17? No, I do not. If he does, he's a legitimate candidate. He is. This team rode Kyren Williams the last 6 weeks of the season, and his game is incredible. He's a smaller back, so can he handle a full season like this? I don't know. But the final 6 games of the season, 155 touches, almost 800 yards, 8 touchdowns, that's impressive. I watched Kyren Williams do a lot of the same things Christian McCaffrey did, almost at the same level. He's really good. 49ers should have a down year. The 49ers are older and starting their decline. They should be looking to trade a veteran at the. So I could see them actually trying to add somebody, but both Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel have been rumored to be on the trade block. They did draft Ricky Purcell in the first round. Trent Williams is the best player on that team, and he's 36 or 37. when he was down those 3 games, they went 0-3. I don't think Brock Purdy's elite. I think he's pretty good. Proved me wrong about being an NFL quarterback, but I don't think he's elite. So, yeah. Seattle Seahawks. I'm going to be very clear. I have not a lot of confidence in Seattle being good this year offensively. Maybe the best trio of receivers in the league. BD Buster says Rams. Yeah, it is going to be tougher. It really is. And you also don't have Aaron Donald. The NFC West is going to be interesting, but I'm not sold on Seattle at all. If I had to give somebody a possibility, so you have, you know what? I didn't put his name down, but he's from the UK. He's actually from London. He was defensive line coach in Dallas. He's now the defensive coordinator in Seattle. Since he's worked with Dan Quinn a long time, I'm assuming they're going to have a Dan Quinn type of defense. So the guy I'm really looking at as a dark horse MVP is Boye Mafe, one of my draft crushes. He had 3 sacks his rookie year. He had 9 last year. It wouldn't surprise me if he has something crazy like 15 this year. But keep in mind, if Seattle's offense is explosive, which it could be, one of these offensive players is going to get the credit. Boye Mafe should lead this team in sacks. He could be a defensive MVP candidate. The talent's off the chart, but you have a new defensive coordinator, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I don't have a lot of faith. In Seattle, but Boye Mafe could be poised for a monster year. Stafford could have an MVP season. The Rams O-line got better if Kupp is healthy all season. Look out. Absolutely. I agree with everything, but I just don't think Stafford's going to be healthy the whole season. And I also think that they need to lean more on the running back. Now, he's a smaller guy, but that's what they did last season, and it worked, and they won a lot of games. The Rams, they got Braden Fisk from Florida State, and they got, I'm drawing a blank. They got the defensive lineman and the edge rusher. He's going to play outside linebacker, but played defensive end at Florida State. Drawing a complete blank on his name. Yeah, the Rams last year the last 2 years have had really, really, really quietly good drafts. Not even counting Puka, not Dakota or whatever. Finally, my dark horse MVP for the Cardinals is Trey Benson. Marvin Harrison Jr. is a big name. Everybody knows about Marvin Harrison Jr. Trey Benson is the guy that I think could really surprise people and have a monster year. James Conner had 208 carries, 1,040 yards, and 7 touchdowns, 5.0 yards per carry. This is one of the slower running backs in the National Football League, but he's a power dude. Trey Benson ran, I think it was a 4.38 at the combine. This is a team that was 4th in rushing and 2nd in yards per carry. Now, some of that had to do with Kyler Murray, but James Conner had a monster year, but he's the guy that you really want to be the short yardage guy. Benson has a chance to be the explosive guy. If you do fantasy football, get Benson after like round 8, and you're going to be pleasantly surprised because James Conner is a solid running back, number 2 in fantasy. Sooner or later, Benson's going to replace him. And when he does, if this Cardinals team is better, watch out because Benson could have a massive year. Of course, Marvin Harrison Jr. is the obvious choice. Okay, so I didn't talk about this, but Kenneth Walker could be MVP, and he was putting up great numbers. But Zach Charbonnet is a guy I really like, and I think it's a good combo between the two. And Zach Charbonnet is going to eat a lot of those touchdowns. That's the reason why. And I agree. I think Benson could be a 1,000-yard back, and I think Connor may take a back seat. Marvin Harrison Jr. is absolutely going to have an impact day one. Marvin Harrison Jr. is already the best receiver on that team. And that's sad to say, but it's true. It really is. But Benson's the guy that could have a massive year. Now I'm going to give you my top 5. These are my dark horse MVP candidates. Number 5 is Nolan Smith for the Eagles. He's going to have double-digit sacks. Under Vic Fangio, I'm not sure exactly how they're going to use him, but this is a guy that's got crazy talent. Fangio is one of the best defensive minds in football. This guy's going to have double-digit sacks. He's going to have a massive year. Number 4 is Breece Hall, who, let's face it, if the Jets win a lot of games and advance in the playoffs, Aaron Rodgers is going to get the credit, but Breece Hall's the guy that he said it was an NCAA record. It was like 28 straight games with a touchdown in college. Would have had much better numbers if they didn't have a bottom 5 quarterback situation. Could be the worst quarterback situation in football. I don't know. Not a good quarterback situation. Breece Hall could have a monster year. Benson can run the ball. Yeah, by the way, I mean, I'm not saying Benson's going to completely bench Connor, but I think Connor becomes that short yardage guy, and then Benson, because let's face it, I like what they did in the draft, and I like the change, but I don't think Arizona's going to have a great defense, and I think they're going to have to win some shootouts. So, Hutchinson could break out this season if DJ Reader could take double teams with Houston returning. Hutchinson could easily take a step up and be like a 15-sack guy. Absolutely. Besides Chicago, who goes from worst to... my pick is Cincinnati. And the reason why I think it's Cincinnati is Miles Murphy was their first-round pick last year. He barely played. Trey Henderson had 17.5 sacks. They also got Joseph Adai. I love what they did in the draft because they got a couple defensive tackles who I think are going to contribute immediately. Offensively, they went with high-risk, high-reward players. And there's talk that Amarius Mims is just knocking it out of the park. They're already trying Trent Brown, who's going to be the starter at right tackle. They're already trying him out at guard because Amarius Mims is ahead of schedule. If that's the case, you got a guy at left tackle who's 355. You have a guard who's 370, and you have a right tackle that's 345. Yeah, good luck getting to Joe Burrow. So Cincinnati is my pick to be first to worst. But nothing, Burrow, like every other season, stays healthy. It's really weird. But I look at Cincinnati. Perry says the Cards, maybe. I really like the draft in their offseason. So Breece Hall's number 4. Kyle Hamilton's number 3. And I cannot emphasize how good I think Kyle Hamilton can be. I thought coming out of college, he wasn't going to be special. I thought Baltimore was going to be disappointed. I really thought that. I remember OTAs. He had like some bad OTAs, and I was like, I told you guys, he's not the guy you think he is. And God, he proved me wrong. Kyle Hamilton has a chance to become like the first defensive back because they use him all over the field. I'll be honest, Antoine Winfield was better. But Kyle Hamilton has a chance this year to do something that nobody's ever done before. So that's why I got him at number 3. Breece Hall stays healthy. Aaron Rodgers stays healthy. They run the ball a lot more. He could have he could be an MVP easy. Kyron Williams is number 2 because the last half of the season when the Rams needed to win, they put everything on Kyron Williams. Not Stafford. They really banked on Kyron Williams, and he came through. Now, in the playoff game, they went heavy on Stafford and light on Williams. Maybe they should have done it the other way around. Who knows? I didn't blame the offense for the Rams' demise. Actually, I blamed the defense. They couldn't stop the Lions from running out the clock. But Kyren Williams, number 2. And number 1 is Bryce Young. And I think there's a really strong possibility Bryce Young could win MVP because I think that the Carolina Panthers defense is going to be bad. I think he's going to get an opportunity to put up some big numbers. I really, 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 really believe this. I really believe this. But bottom line, I think I don't like I really, really don't like putting up a I'm gonna just show it to you here. Yeah, I got a lot of stuff up here. What the hell's else in the background here? Oh, I got some other things, but anyway. Blow this up a little bit, but my top 5, this made it shorter here, but my top 5 dark horses, I got Nolan Smith, Breece Hall, Kyle Hamilton, Kyren Williams, and Bryce Young. And I think Bryce Young's going to have an opportunity to put up some massive numbers. I don't think the defense is going to be good. And the last 3 years, 9-8 has won this division. Actually, it was 9-8, 8-9, then 9-8, if I remember right. So 9 wins could easily win this division. Nobody's ever questioned the talent. I question his size, and it has nothing to do with height. I don't know if he can stay healthy at 195. Look, you put him in a safe pocket. They spent a crazy amount of money on the offensive line, so I don't think he does need to be a star because they got some other players, but Leggett does need to produce quite a bit. He may not need to be a star, but they got some other players on this team that could produce. So you have Deontay Johnson. You traded for him. He's not bad number 2 guy. Jonathan Mingo has ability. Terrence Marshall has ability. Neither one of those guys panned out. Amir Smith-Marset was in Kansas City, played really good, really, really, really good. Special teams guy, maybe he comes in. Thielen probably lead the team in receptions again, but Leggett needs to contribute. Doesn't have to be a star, though. It would help. Put the new special team rule, who has the best special teams in the league this year. It's kind of funny because one of the things the Chiefs have done is they added a rugby star who they are trying out as the kickoff guy because they noticed the Chiefs special teams coach, Dave Tobin, the best in the business, noticed that the kicker was making about 20 to 25% of the tackles. Well, they don't want Harrison Butker to do that, who arguably was the best kicker in the National Football League, arguably the best kicker in the football. So they also have Justin Reed, who also there was a game where Butker was injured and Justin Reed kicked an extra point. He plays safety, of course, but Justin Reed's also doing kicks. So one thing that Kansas City is doing is trying a player who can play another position besides kicker kicking off. And that may be something that more and more teams are doing. So Andy Reid's working on it. I guarantee you John Harbaugh, former special teams coach, has had some input on it. It's going to be interesting. I don't like radical rule changes like this, but it could be just a matter of time before they eliminate kickoffs altogether. And I'd rather them try something new than to get rid of something. I would rather things be the old way and just say, hey, I wish the NFL would just be honest and say, you know what, player safety, we don't really care about. Because if they did, it would be all grass. You would increase padded player practices or what is it? Not padded, but contact and practice. But yeah, all grass stadiums. I've always said this, they should change it to like leather helmets with padding or if you get hit by the helmet, you don't hurt somebody else, but you can have the padding in a way that it doesn't hurt you, but it's a soft exterior. You can do that right now. They just don't want to. So you think it's Detroit? Best special teams? Put the new special team role. Who has special? I don't think it'd be Detroit, but I know Kansas City's trying some different players. But we're gonna find out. There is definitely some talk about the NFL getting rid of kickoffs. There's been a lot of talk that every team just starts off at either the 25 or the 30 or the 35. And I would not be surprised if in a few years from now they just say every team gets ball at 25. Let's go. I wouldn't like that, but there's been talk about that. James! Man, I haven't seen you in a while, brother. It's good to see you. Teron Arnold, definitely Rookie of the Year. Oh, man. I've been hearing some good things about him in camp, but I wouldn't go that far yet. He's going to get an opportunity to be a day one starter. We'll have to find out. We'll find you got all my social media links are below, so make sure you follow me on social media. Hit me up, James. So I'm going to come out with a new email list, and I won't bore you with the details, but it's been a little hectic on this end, so I haven't had a chance to update the YouTube channel or to get together an updated list. Plus, I've just put it out there. I'm doing something this fall called Afternoon Delight. I haven't advertised it yet because I haven't had time. But man, I'm really glad to see you, brother. It's been a long time, and I'm glad you joined, man. Thank you. We had somebody go to a Pro Bowl last year through special teams. It's going to be interesting. I think special teams is going to be a little more entertaining this year than it's been in the past. And it'll be interesting to see which teams handle it, because I think the teams that handle it well will have a better chance to make the playoffs. And Bill Parcells always said the best way to turn the team around is through special teams. I'm paraphrasing what he said. But listen, it's been almost 3 hours. I'm going to go ahead and get off of here. But thank you very much for joining my defensive MVP. I'm sorry, my dark horse MVP conversation. I'm thinking about next week doing a top 10 list, because I found a YouTube channel that had a fantastic top 10 defensive tackle list. Then I looked at his top 10 running back list, and I was like, this is terrible. So I broke out my top 10 running back list, and I thought about doing that instead. But I really want to go through some dark horse MVPs. Again, these are my top 5: Nolan Smith, Breece Hall, Kyle Hamilton, Kyron Williams, and Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young has a really good chance to surprise some people. The defense is not going to be good. He's got to put up some big numbers, and we'll see what he can do. But thank you so much for joining in. I hope you all can join back next Friday, and I will see you then.